Chair Schmidt, you may begin.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Welcome to the October 25th, 2021 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held using Zoom webinar format. So you will see that the planning commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may raise your hand in the Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the email comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or an applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so that we may have more clear communication, simulating the experience we would have if we were in an in-person meeting. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 2, roll call. Let the record should note that 6 planning commissioners are present at this time. We are currently missing Commissioner Camarado. Moving on.
Chair Schmidt, just a clarification, we have 5 planning commissioners present. Commissioner Rojas is also absent.
Thank you. So noted. Okay, approval of minutes. We have draft minutes from September 27th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments or changes or discussion regarding the minutes? Okay, then is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes for September 27th, 2021, including the addendum that staff issued that captured some of the traffic consultant, Hexagon consultant for the project on Ogden. I can't remember the exact address, sorry, but anyway, motion to approve.
Great.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any further discussion? Great, can we have a vote?
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus.
Aye.
Commissioner Terrones.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes tonight?
There are no changes for the agenda from staff.
Okay. Question regarding item 8E, which is our zoning ordinance discussion. Do we want to continue to have that before the design review study, or do we want to push that to the end?
We can have that before the design review study. We have not publicized that change,
Okay.
so the applicants are expected to go after. And we've got 3 of them here, so if it was just one item, we could, move that up. But otherwise, let's just keep it as is.
Okay. So then no changes to the agenda. Okay, moving on to item number, recusals. We have a couple. Commissioner Terrones on item 7A.
Correct.
Vice Chair Loftus on 7B. Do we know of any others? Nope. Okay. Then moving on to public comments. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future planning commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the planning commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. A timer will sound at the end of the time. I may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. Please speak clearly and into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda? I'm not seeing any hands. Do we have any other communication for the public comments?
No, there were no public comment emails received.
Okay, then seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item number 6, there aren't any study items this evening. So moving on to item number 7, we have the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. They are acted on simultaneously unless separate discussion or action is requested by the applicant, a member of the public, or a commissioner prior to the time of the commission votes on the motion to adopt. As we already have 2 people recusing from different items, we will have to address these as 3 separate items anyway. So no reason to move any further on that. Would any members of the public or the applicant or any members of the planning commission like to pull any of these items for further discussion? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just clarification, and for the record, I'm recused on item 7A 1120 Summer Avenue because our office is the architect for the project, so statutory.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, and I'm recused on 7B 520 Howard because I simply didn't have the opportunity to visit the site, review the materials, or watch the video.
Okay. So then let's move on with item 7A 1120 Summer Avenue. And do we have a motion for consent?
I would make a motion to approve the project with the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Okay, great.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Gall, seconded by Vice Chair Loftus. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner, yes, Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0-1-2. And now moving on to 7B 520 Howard Avenue. Do we have a motion for that one?
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve item 7B 520 Howard Avenue.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Coronis and a second by Commissioner Say. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0-1-2. Okay, moving on to 7C, 1870 to 1876 El Camino Real. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 1-year extension.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Say. Let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0-0-2. Congratulations to all 3 of our consent calendar.
Chair Schmidt, if you could read the appeal rights as well. These would apply to all 3 projects.
There we go. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Okay, moving on to item 8A, 1505 Alturas Drive. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. For any commissioners not able to visit the site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Commissioner Say?
Yes, I'm sorry. I did speak with the neighbor at, at 3101 Cananea Avenue.
Okay. Commissioner Tronis?
Yeah, same thing, Mr. Chair. I had a chance to visit the property at 3101 Cananea Avenue and speak with that property owner.
Okay. Great. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is an application for a review of a hillside area construction permit for a first floor addition at the rear of an existing split level house at 1505 Alturas Drive. The subject property has a cross slope from left to right and from front to rear. So in some areas, it's 2 stories at the front and 1 at the rear. The existing house has an attached garage and contains 2,537 square feet of floor area with 4 bedrooms. The applicant is proposing a 338 square foot single story addition at the rear of the house. And with the addition, the square footage would increase to 2,875 square feet, or 4,078 square feet is the maximum allowed on a lot of this size. As part of the addition, the applicant proposes to reframe the main roof portion, which is on the right side. And this would be in order to match the 4-12 roof pitch and to tie in the proposed rear addition. This change results in an approximately an increase of 3 feet in height along the right side of the property. However, all based upon the code required height measurement, which is from the average top of curb to the highest pitch, the overall height is only increasing by approximately 1 foot, just under 1 foot. The application also includes exterior material changes. However, this project is not subject to design review because it's just a single story addition. The planning department received a hillside area construction permit back in June and plan checked to process this application and provided the notices to the public on September 24th. On October 1st, a request for review of this application for the hillside area construction permit was filed by the adjacent neighbor. The neighbor notes they have concerns with the proposed addition and possible view impacts. Staff would note that code section 2561 of the zoning ordinance states that review of hillside area construction permits by the Planning Commission shall be based upon obstruction by construction of the existing distant views of nearby properties. Emphasis shall be given to distant views from habitable areas within a dwelling unit. The Planning Commission should hold a public hearing this evening on this application, consider the public testimony and the analysis contained in the staff report. Action should include specific findings that support the Planning Commission's decision and should be affirmed by resolution of the Planning Commission. The reasons for any action should be clearly stated for the record. Staff has provided 6 suggested conditions of approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I know the project architect is available to provide a presentation this evening as well. Vice Chair Loftus, you have a question?
I do. I just want to make sure I understand some things about this project. The first question I would have, would this project have come to us if it hadn't been requested by the neighbor?
No, it would not have. The hillside area is reviewed by the neighbors within 100 feet of the property, as well as Planning Commission and Council received the notice. So if it's not called up for review within the 7-day review period, then it is approved administratively.
Okay, and then I note on the, as you noted, and as the staff report notes, this project is not subject to design review. And then on the other page, the next page at the very bottom, it says, however, if the commission feels there's more need for discussion, the item may be placed on a future action calendar for a second review. Oh, it doesn't say design review. Okay, that makes that clear. And why our story pole installation was not required based on staff review of the photos provided. And that was, and so normally what happens is it comes to us and we ask for story poles.
Correct.
Since it wasn't coming to us, no story poles were requested.
Correct. At this time, staff did not, that's usually something that is either volunteered by the applicant or is requested directly from the planning commission.
Okay, I just wanted to make, this is sort of an unusual sequence of events, so.
Yeah, we don't usually see too many of these.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, then I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Hello, can everyone hear me? I'm Alex Zhang, the architect. Hi, commissioners. I'm glad to be in front of you again. I actually, you should remember my face. I was here about 2 months ago on another Hillside project where I have a second story added above a garage over a hillside, and that got approved in one shot. So today in front of you is a much simpler project where I am not adding a second story, but in the middle of our building. Catherine, if you can show the floor plan again, it will be helpful. So if you look at the screen, the left side is the existing site, and the right side is our proposed expansion, where we are purely adding in the middle of two sections. By trying to use the same 4-on-12 roof slope and create a vaulted ceiling in between, this is actually the most efficient way of tying everything. So we sent this project out for neighbors' comments, and we received the immediate uphill neighbor at 3101 saying that they are objecting the project because the ridge that we add from the middle has increased roughly 3 feet. I don't know if Catherine has the elevation to show. If so, that would be awesome. Yes, so this will be how the project is going to look like from the back. The upper floor is where our existing ridge line, like behind the fireplace, is where the existing ridge line is. And the lower floor is where I am proposing the new ridge. So yes, even though the ridge line at the middle section is raised about 3 feet, the overall increase in height is less than 15 inches. The uphill neighbor has filed a objection and a request for a request for this planning review. And so before this happened, our office has 2 chances to visit the neighbor at 3101 to hear about the concern. The first time we go in, hear the concern, and we actually take 2 pictures. That is from the upper terrace of their yard and also from the kitchen closest to their to our property. We took those 2 shots, and then the next day we go back and then we try to work out a possible agreeable solution that hopefully my client is willing to accept. So in 3101's neighbor comment, they are saying that our design will be so close to them and the raise of 3 feet is going to be an eyesore. Unfortunately, my design got mentioned as an eyesore. I did not think that way. But then more so is they are saying that it blocks their view to the hillside road. So when we took the picture, we are clear that it does not obstruct any distant view, like anything that we directed is actually only blocking what they claim. However, understanding that Burlingame does not control view to streets or nearby neighborhood, but it is purely to the bay, to far distance, to the airport, that sort, I try to explain to the neighbor that this is what Burlingame is about. But they do, I also tell them that they do have the right to object and request this so that the commissioner can tell them what the city's guidelines would be. So neighbor and I actually have a proposal that they might accept, which which they will make our center addition at a lower roof pitch that doesn't match the rest of the building. And as a result of that lower roof pitch, the inside vaulted ceiling, which is all the whole purpose of this design, will be dramatically reduced to a point that it is totally irrelevant. So even though I tried my best to propose that suggestion to my client, the client looking at the interior and felt like the different roof slope and also the lower and vaulted ceiling, it's not something that they're willing to accept, granted that they're spending so much money in trying to create this vault. So at the end, the neighbor is calling for this review, and I just want to present to you what has happened. And I do feel that this is a classic example of neighbors feeling view being blocked, and that what is the city's take in that if this design is blocking any view. So I'm pretty sure the neighbors will be speaking, but if Catherine, if you don't mind, can you show our before and after renderings, if you have that? I just want to show an upfront of what we see there in case no planning commissioners has seen it yet. Sorry, I'm talking about the rendering where I show the new constructed volume versus the old. The view study, yeah. Yes. So this will be. There you go. Thank you. So on the left column is the existing view for two views. That is what the neighbor is telling us to make shots of. That is the most relevant to them. And you will clearly see the our client's house is where that house is behind those trees. And then on the right side is a very, very accurate rendering of when the building is erected, what will the main volume do to the view. And as clear as this, like the shot is, the shot angle is where we are able to take the best of the concern of neighbors that they're okay. And it is very, very clear to us and the planner that there's no obstruction of view. However, the neighbor has the right to request a review and hear any comments that the commission has said. So seeing this rendering, I do want to request the planning commissioner grant us an approval of what we're trying to do and find that the view obstruction is not significant or invalid. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if we can move back to the main, there we go. Okay, with that, do we have any commissioners? Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I want to just dig in just a little bit on the renderings. So those are renderings that you've done that you say are very, very accurate. How you feel certain that those are accurate? Did you place the new? So you did a rendering of the house and you placed the ridge, I presume, relative to the existing ridge in that photograph. How did you go about making that rendering?
Yes. So again, if you look at the far end, where you see the two-story portion of the house going horizontal, that's the relative anchorage where we try to mimic the position of it. And then on the lower left side is where the front end, so we have the front end and the rear end, that is not changing. So if we can align the front and the end from the left side to the right side, whatever in the middle is going to be accurate, because this is actually not a hand paint, it's actually a 3D model arranged in the perspective accordingly.
That's what I wanted to get at. So you've modeled this in 3D and you've placed it relative to existing points on the existing building.
Yes.
To determine, and that you say is accurate. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was looking at.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, moving on, then I'm going to go ahead and open it up to members of the public. We have Arvind Akila. Okay, sir. Yep, there you go.
Hello, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity. And I also want to thank 3 commissioners who came out to see our perspectives. Really appreciate your time and taking time out of your busy schedule is not easy. So especially even at the last minute, Commissioner say just try to get even in 5 minutes. That's really valuable. We wanted to just bring up the issue that even if it says, and I know we try to work with Alex, who's the architect. I think, we're looking at so many different angles. I think what would be very helpful for all of us is having a story pole so we can all see the same thing rather than looking at different photos. I also submitted photos with some of my cartoon boxes putting on this, and you can see as the attachments. So we have a different perspectives. Again, I'm fully supportive of my neighbor's construction. Absolutely, I want to support them, but at the same time, when we purchased the house a year and a half ago, one of the main reasons we were so attracted to this property was the exterior of this house and also the views from all around the house. It's a very open house. Sure, if somebody else will, or we have to sell in, at some time, it would not be the same attractive as it was for me last year. So I think I would request, again, there's so many different places that I have even walked some of the commissioners, and I'm happy to do that again for those who couldn't make it. The value of the views are tremendous from our side. And I can totally understand my neighbors not having that perspective because they have not seen it from our side. And again, whatever the commissioners will decide, we'll go with that. But having a story poll, and so I'm requesting that if we can have a story poll so we can all see the same thing and same perspective, that would be very valuable to us. Mm-hmm. Going back to my conversation, as you can see how I was trying to work it out, I called the architect myself, reached out, have them come to our house, have them walk through all over from different angles. They took pictures. The second day, Alex came out, and I thought we all kind of had a good compromise agreement. Unfortunately, when Alex said, "Oh, that was the most productive 24 hours we had," I was like, "Perfect, that's what we want to do." But just about an hour later, he said the idea was rejected. That wasn't as exciting for us. So I would like to request commissioners to at least have a story poll so we can all see the impact of the roof height, which is pretty significant from our side. And that's the longest side of the structure that's being raised. is being raised by 38.5 inches. Thank you.
Sorry, unmute. Okay, thank you, sir. Moving on to our next person, Martha Leboisier, hopefully. Okay, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello?
There you go, you're good.
There we go. Okay. Thanks to all the commissioners for allowing us the opportunity to participate in the meeting. Really appreciated. I am the neighbor at 1 Cananea Place. That is my address. My property is in the northwest corner of 1505 Alturas Drive. Like others have mentioned here, and I think Vice Chair Loftus highlighted, I have to admit I'm a little bit confused about the plans. The articulation is unclear. The heights are not easily understandable. I actually spent quite a good amount of time outside looking and trying to understand what was the highest point. I'm not an architect, and I apologize. The understanding is not so easy for me. But overall, my sense is that as the property height increases, to the best of my understanding of what I could see, and I've heard so many numbers in this meeting today that I have to confess I'm confused. But it sounds to me like it's over 3 feet. From the drawings that were submitted and the existing elevation to the proposed elevation. And so, like my neighbor, I would very much welcome if there was guidance to put up the story poles so that we could all have clarity. I think that right now it just feels very unclear what, if anything, I would lose. And I have a beautiful view from my bedroom that looks in that direction. Like my neighbor Arvin said, when we bought the property, the view was, of course, a big part of it. It is embedded in the value. We have basically glass doors all in the back of the house. My bedroom looks towards 1505 Alturas. And I'm just trying really to understand what these folks are doing, and the renditions are simply not sufficient. So that is my request of this commission. And like Vice Chair, I was a little bit confused by Vice Chair Loftus. I was a little bit confused with the 3D projection because, quite frankly, the 3D projection does not match the drawings. It is impossible for the drawings to go up and the 3D projection not go up. And again, maybe I'm missing out something, but thank you so much for your attention, and I appreciate the opportunity you all have given us.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see if we have any other speakers. Yes, we have Ethan Pang. Mr. Pang, if you unmute yourself, you can speak at this time.
Oh, hi, everybody.
There you go.
So my name is Ethan Pan, and I'm the property owner at 3 Cananea Place. So basically, my property sits right above the subject property. You know, as we all know, I know how this process goes. You know, because we went through the same process a few months ago, going through the planning department and planning review. You know, I think so, you know, I was looking at the renderings as well, and I was looking at the drawings. I think adding, the square footage that they're adding, less than 400 square foot, that shouldn't be too much of a problem for us. However, I agree with the other two neighbors, what they mentioned earlier about the height difference. At this point, it seems like I'm not quite confident of, or the renderings, and how accurate they are. However, I think if they expand horizontally with, without adding the height difference, we should be okay with it. I don't think, if they adding horizontally, that's not affecting our view, or anything. I think actually adding steel pole would be a good idea. So some of us can at least get an understanding of exactly how much impact we will have in terms of the views. So we are looking at the parks. Actually, subject properties sits below where we locate, so that shouldn't be a big deal. But I think having some clarity will be very helpful. And so if at that time we think it's a go, then we shouldn't reject the proposal. That's what I think. Thank you very much for everybody, and I appreciate all your understanding on this.
Great, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands in the public. Are there any further emails, chats, or otherwise?
No, there were no other public emails submitted for this project. I also did want to remind the Planning Commission that for the Hillside area view obstruction, we are looking at long distance views, which generally means views of the East Bay Hills, the Bay, San Francisco Airport, those distances. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Before I close the public hearing, I see that the applicants have their hand up. Would you like to speak?
Yes, please. This is Bishwa and Nina Ganguly. We're the owners of the property at 1505 Alturas Way. I want to thank the commissioners for taking the time to review our permit application. I simply have to say, based on the evidence provided for us by architect Sang, I'm speaking of the computer-generated renditions of the before and after taken from our neighbors' key vantage points, and also through discussions with senior planner Kalen to try to understand what the definitions are of view obstruction and view. As we understand it, as to the extent we could educate ourselves, there is no view. There is no distant view. There's no view of the bay. There's no view of the airport. If the only view is of, you can't even see Hillside Drive. You can see the trees next to Hillside Drive. So we don't see there being a view. And then take it one step further, looking at the renditions, we see absolutely no obstruction of that, of what you can see of that scene. And then finally, it's hard for us to understand what a storyboard is going to add to our understanding of the situation. Like the other two neighbors in question, I think the person who first submitted, they actually have a view over the top of our house. The other two neighbors don't have as clear a view over the top of our house. So I'm really just going to focus on the main complaint, and I just don't see a view, and I don't see an obstruction of view as I understand it. And I just want to say that I don't think a storyboard is going to add to our understanding of this, and it's simply going to cause an undue financial burden for us, which we are already going to be investing a lot in this improvement. So we respectfully ask the commissioners to accept our permit as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zhang, do you have one more thing you'd like to add?
Yes, commissioners. Yes, I just want to I'm not sure if the senior planner can show a Google view of what our property is versus the 3 other applicants as location, because I want to clearly point out that where is the view direction for the protected view for Burlingame and where the relative location of these houses are. As far as I'm concerned, the direct view direction of all these 3 neighbor houses are seeing against the protected view over our lot. So I think the clear discrepancies here is the agreement of whether a protected view is being obstructed. A erection of a story pole should be required only if there is such a view in question in the path of the neighbors to our site. But if you look at the Google map direction, it will be fairly clear that their view direction is the other side of where the protected view is. So erecting a story pole in Burlingame is fairly cumbersome. We're spending about $2,000 to $3,000 for contractor erecting it, and then we're spending about $2,000 for surveyor to certify it. We understand the need of it if there is a legitimate view in question, but I urge the commissioner to look at the site plan and the direction and find it that the story pole is not going to add evidence whether there is a protected view being blocked.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'm going to move back to the commission. So, commissioners' comments. Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I'll start. I chose deliberately not to go out and look until there was something that I could, because I didn't see any evidence from the photographs, any of the photographs, that there were any distant views obstructed. And my general sense was exactly what the architect just said, that and the applicant just said, that the story poles are not going to give us any more information. And, you know, I'll trust my fellow commissioners who decided to do something other than I decided to do and go out there and look to tell me whether I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, the right thing to do is to erect story poles. But if erecting story poles shows exactly or even close to what the architect's model dropped into the photographs shows, then I don't see any obstructed views here. That's my take on it. You know, I'll go out there if we have story poles to look at, but I didn't see the need to erect story poles based on what I can tell here. And I just looked at the Google map, and the architect's exactly right. It's looking sort of due east down towards, I mean, even if you could see anything, it's looking down towards Foster City. It's not looking directly across the bay. So I'm not seeing any evidence that there's a need for story poles personally. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a quandary because I thought I understood where we were at, but now we have 2 other viewpoints, the neighbors on Cananea Place. I've been visiting 3101 Cananea Avenue and seeing where the area where this project was going to occur and the addition that would occur above the existing ridge line or roof line. I could not see any views that we have typically protected. In other words, you know, I referenced Commissioner Planning Manager Hearn's comments that what we have traditionally and typically protected and considered with the Hillside area ordinance, at least for the last 15, 16 years that I've been on the commission, it has been distant bay views, views of the East Bay, views of the airport, and more distant views. The only potential blockage, if you want to call it that, was of more local trees in the near distance beyond the project or the house that's being considered. Yeah, you can sort of see a view towards Hillside Drive, but it's views of nearby trees, not distant views. The view from 3101 Cananea Place, Avenue, the view that I could see having any consideration for protection would be to the east, looking out more towards the bay, towards the airport, et cetera. That would be the view that anybody would expect to see coming to this house. I can't imagine that even a future buyer would come to this house and say, gee, I wish I had a view of Hillside area over to my right where somebody added to their ridge line. So I don't see a protected view from 3101 Cananea Avenue. What I don't know, unfortunately, because this is before us for action, and it's just a mechanism of this odd situation where there's no fault to be had or blame. It's just these get called up for action when they get called up for action, whether it's by a neighbor or commissioner or anybody who wants to when the notification goes out. So it's called up for action. We don't have the advantage of a study meeting. And so now we have 2 points of view from 1 Cananea Place and 3 Cananea Place. I don't know if there's any views over there. Maybe it's a little difficult to tell from street views. I have to only imagine if there are or there aren't. And my inclination is that there probably aren't. But we're unfortunately in a situation where we're left with probablys, and I don't think so's, which to me is a little bit difficult to act on, quite honestly. I think that if this had come before us as a study item, we might end up requesting story polls or requiring story polls. My fear is we require the story polls and then it comes back as, no, these are not views that we typically protect. Yes, from the neighboring properties, you can see the roof, but it doesn't mean that it's blocking a view that's protected. So I'm just in a bit of a quandary because we now have 2 additional voices that we weren't aware of before this was coming up for us for action that we could have seen ahead of time.
Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I will agree with what Commissioner Toronis just stated. I had the same reaction to my perspective of the view blockage from 3101 Cananea Avenue. I believe I didn't get to enter the home. They did invite me, but I didn't have enough time to go inside the house. But the view from the home would not be of the area that is in question. The neighbor specifically noted that their concern about a quote unquote view blockage would be from their backyard. And so that's where we focused our time. And it's a view to the right towards some trees and a partial street, which I believe might be Hillside Drive. I don't believe that's a view that we protect or is a desirable view. I believe the house itself probably has much more beautiful views looking due east. So I would agree that at 3101 Cananea Avenue, that there isn't a concern to ask for story polls. The second neighbor who spoke, who is at the corner, again would have a similar issue that the views would be towards the east and not southeast towards Hillside Drive, and being at a higher point as well. I didn't visit that property. That wasn't an option for us, but I can't imagine that there'd be any view blockage there for a few feet in rise of the ridgeline. Now for 3 Cananea Place, I did actually visit that property in the past when it was on the market or newly sold. I did visit that property. And in my recollection from that home and being on the deck outside the main level, that there wasn't, there weren't any bay views from that property specifically. I don't know if they may have trimmed their trees down and maybe there's something, but again, I don't think a few feet, 2 or 3 feet rise in ridge height of the neighbor below would necessarily block their view from their angle. Their view is probably more horizontal and again due east as opposed to looking down to the bay. So from what I recall, I would say that also at 3 Cananea Place that I don't believe that there's any potential distant bay views that are being blocked, but I don't know for certain. I'm just going off of my recollection. And I do feel for the applicant in that this is, a 1-story addition, that it can be pricey to add the story poles. That's not my decision for making, these comments about the potential cost of the story poles is going off of what I saw today, as well as kind of what I know of that neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I also did not get into the neighbor's house at 3101 Cananea Place, but I did visit the site and look down the right-hand side of their property and could see the subject property. And it was clear to me from that perspective that you are looking at nearby trees. There is not a distant view blockage. So I'm having a hard time, with holding this thing up. And as I was reading the plans, I'm glad that the architect clarified it, that it was one of the ridges that is raising up about 2 or 3 feet. But the overall ridge height is really like 9 inches according to the plans. I can't see where that's going to have a huge impact on the views. And I agree with the applicant and with the architect that the cost of the story poles is significant, and I think it's for a minimal impact on a no impact on the distant views. So I don't think that I can support this. I can support the project. I don't see why we should hold this up, to be honest.
Okay. I actually haven't seen any of the photographs that would suggest that we're seeing anything other than close by trees. And I too, same thing. I've climbed up the hill. I've actually been in 1 Cananea Place when it was on the market, so I know those views. And there's a lot of trees in the way, as if you're taking a good look at Google Earth, there's trees in the way on those views that cover really a lot of the back of this property. And so I'm in agreement that I'm not seeing enough evidence here that would suggest that that there's a significant view blockage and that we should stall this any further. So I don't know that I would support prolonging this. So Vice Chair Loftus, I see you're up again.
It seems to me the next rational step, I wouldn't make the leap to story poles, but the next rational step would be to say, if any of the neighbors can take a photograph looking over this property that shows a distant view, then we can reconsider it. But if nobody can show a distant view from their property right now, then we're certainly not blocking distant views, and the story's over. Right. But if somebody can show a distant view, then maybe what we need to do is to ask for story poles, but I need more evidence than this. Just a thought.
Agreed. I'm just not sure if we have a mechanism in this action to do that.
Well, one possibility, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah.
We could continue the item and not require story poles, but ask for the opportunity to visit the properties at 1 Cananea Place and 3 Cananea Place. That's one possibility. I will say that I am somewhat swayed by your comments, Chair Schmidt, and Commissioner Say's comments in terms of their knowledge of those properties. I'm swayed by the fact that there may not be any view issues, but we could continue it, but not have the applicant incur the cost of the story poles, but just continue it just for the sake of giving ourselves the opportunity to go visit 1 and 3 Cananea Place.
So, Ruben, could we then continue this so that it doesn't go on forever, but just to the next meeting. And if evidence is provided that would suggest that we should take a different action at the next meeting. Otherwise, I want to be able to push this forward for the applicant, because I, as an applicant, wouldn't want to be held up either.
Well, I
Unless
just
there
want to
was
say,
substantial.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, I'd like some evidence that I should go out there. I don't want to go visit all these sites if there's no distant view, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense at all.
We could
Photographs.
we could make a motion and we could move forward with this project, and then the neighbors could appeal to city council if they so desired.
Right, that is another option. Your action tonight, if you decide to take action, is appealable. But as Vice Chair Loftus also noted, that if you're confident that there are no long distant views from this area, then that says something there too. But as Commissioner Toronas pointed out, you have the option of continuing, or if you want to move the project forward along, take action, and they also have the appeal rights.
Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I raised my hand this time. Sorry, I don't want to talk over people. So
That's nice of you.
We have two potential paths here, both of which to solve it involve some money, right? One of which is to require story poles where none of us believe that they are needed. But the appeal used to be $1,045. I'm not sure what it is now, $743. If
708.
If the neighbors are really adamant that they've got an argument for this, they can spend the 700 and whatever the number is to appeal it. I don't mind that at all. I just don't want to go out there and stand there and look at something that I didn't need to go look at. I've got enough going on, outside of this commission, that I don't have time to do that unless it's really necessary. I'm happy to do it if it's necessary, but don't make me go out there for no reason.
So we need a motion one way or the other.
Chair Schmidt, if I may,
You may.
it may thank you. It may be helpful to poll around, because I haven't heard a consensus about the direction that anyone wants to go, and I know you're going that way with the motion, but we do have, as Vice Chair Loftus mentioned, we do have the options of either continuing it for a meeting. We have the option of going forward with it today, or we have the option of the denial, I suppose, as well. But it may be worth fleshing out to determine whether there is a consensus that would move it forward before considering pushing it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yes. So do we have then more consensus for approving and allowing the neighbors to go via the appeal process? Is that more nods or less nods?
Yes, sure.
I raised my hand to say yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm leaning that way as well. So I'm not hearing anybody really leaning towards continuance or even story polls.
Right.
I have not heard any story polls.
No, because I think that there are options short of story polls.
And I would agree. And we do need to be sensitive to impact and all of that for this. So then it sounds to me like we have a motion to approve. Correct?
Not formally. I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions and details in the staff report.
And
I'll second that motion.
Oh, let Commissioner Say have that one.
I'm going to give it to the lady. So we have a motion by Commissioner Toronas and a second by Commissioner Say. Any further discussion on the motion? Fabulous. Let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Toronas,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
and Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. An action by the Planning Commission. Oops. is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. I would just like to say in closing on this item to the neighbors, this is not really us saying that you don't have anything to say. We did hear your concerns and take them seriously, but we are trying to follow the regulations and rules that are in place regarding hillside permits and views. And we would very much encourage you, if you are feeling that this did not capture your view, to appeal and provide that information to city council for them to be able to assist us with. But at this point in time, we did not see enough evidence to take that action. So moving on to item 8B, right? Yes, 8B 2752 Summit Drive. Will the applicant or the applicant's representative please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time? If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review, hillside area construction permit, and special permit for attached garage for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and attached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing 1-story single-family dwelling and build a new 2-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage. The proposed house and garage would have a total floor area of 4,796 square feet, where 5,102 square feet is the maximum allowed. At the design review study meeting on September 27th, the commission had no suggested changes, however, did require that story poles be installed in this particular situation. Story poles were installed as directed. The story pole certification and story pole plan are included in the attachments. Suggested findings for the requested applications are found on pages 3 and 4 of your staff report. This concludes my summary. Do you have any questions for staff before the applicant speaks?
Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else that you'd like to add about your project?
Hi, good evening. I'm Mike Cooperman. I'm the homeowner, good to be back in front of you. We installed the story poles as requested, and hopefully we can move forward with the project after this meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time? I'm not seeing any hands. Did I miss any questions by the commissioners for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Chair Schmidt, if I may, we did receive a public comment email for this item.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and read that now. This is from Eric Bryan. My family owns property on Tiara Court down the steep hill westerly of 2752 Summit Drive. Due to the huge mass of the proposed building at 2752 Summit Drive, I'm concerned about the stability of the hill it will be built on during an earthquake or landslide. I'm also concerned if the great mass of the building could cause or conduce a landslide. Just below the proposed site, there is an original unspoiled coastal live oak grove, and below that, several houses which are on Tiara Court. My concerns are about the oak grove and the homes below it. Should the weight and mass of the proposed new building increase the chances of a landslide, whether occurring due to heavy rains or weather factors, or a landslide triggered by an earthquake, either of which could damage or destroy the oak grove and homes below on Tiara Court. Thank you, Eric Bryan.
Great, thank you. Okay, Not seeing any other hands and no more comments, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Tronis?
Yeah, I think as we said at the last meeting, I think the project is greatly improved. I really appreciate the applicant and the architect revisiting the project, reconsidering their program, and developing the plans in the way that they have. As we said before, I think that I can make the findings and there is support for the special permit for the attached garage. It is the pattern of the neighborhood. In visiting and seeing the story poles today, I think that the project is only minimally above the existing ridge line and the existing structure. So I think it fits in with the neighborhood. It fits in with the general pattern. And I can't see any impacts that would cause us to apply the Hillside area construction permitting to restrict the project any further.
Great, thank you. I too agree. I think that this project has really largely stayed within a similar envelope of what is there now and has, rearranged to handle the applicant's program, which is good. And I don't know that I have any concerns about the hillside view or any of the other items at this point. I think the materials and everything look a lot nicer, and I think the project is ready to go. Commissioner Say.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with my fellow commissioners. I also want to add that I appreciate that the applicant has avoided the declining height envelope penetration at one point as well. And I was pleased to see that with the story poles, that the height of the structure is just barely over the existing home that's there now. I'd like to move this project to action. It is an action. I'd like to move that we approve this project as presented, and including the special permit for the attached garage.
Second that.
Great. We have a motion by Commissioner Say and a second by Commissioner Tronis. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis,
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Okay. Sorry, I lost my agenda. Moving on to 8C, which is 2312 Hillside Drive. Will the participant or the owner or the owner's representative please raise your hands so that we may be ready to speak with you at the appropriate time. Okay, let's see. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, let the record show that all commissioners present have visited the project site. And can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for design review and special permits for declining height envelope and a detached garage length for a new 2-story single-family dwelling with a new detached garage. The total proposed floor area would be 3,343 square feet, where 3,394 square feet is the maximum allowed. Staff would note that the project does include an attached accessory dwelling unit, but it is not included in the lot coverage or floor area ratio. For lot coverage purposes, any of the floor area above the ADU, however, was counted towards our lot coverage calculations. There would be a total of 4 bedrooms in the proposed house. This requires 2 off-street parking spaces, one of which must be covered and will be provided for in the new detached garage, and the uncovered space will be provided for in the driveway. The applicant is requesting a special permit for encroachment into the declining height envelope along the left side. So this project is requesting design review, special permits for declining height envelope, as well as a special permit for the detached garage length. This project was before the commission on September 27th. In summary, the Planning Commission did like the project, but requested a few changes relating to the request for the declining height envelope encroachment, as well as some additional articulation. The applicant submitted revised plans, date stamped October 15th, along with a response letter to the Planning Commission, which is attached to your staff report. This evening, staff has provided for you suggested findings for design review, as well as the suggested findings for the special permit request for declining height envelope and for garage length. And in addition, there are 14 recommended conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Good evening, I'm Gary Diebel, the architect at Diebel & Company. We appreciate your comments and suggestions from the study session and worked with all of those. Overall, we developed a Spanish character further. We shaped walls, added more articulation and detail to the exterior. We added more cast iron or wrought iron elements and cast stone trim, medallions, exposed outriggers, and introduced some stone material. There were a couple areas in particular, mostly on the left side, that we discussed in the previous meetings. The chimney is now more articulated. We have it in stone with a cap, and there's more detail to the shape. We kept the clay tile vents in the gables. And then also on the left side, also the second story, well, really the full length of the second story was a few inches into the declining height envelope. So we pushed that back to clean that up so that that's out of the declining height envelope. So just the center part is in that area, which we further articulated. So overall, we've brought in more detail articulation. On that left side, there's more sculpting to the walls. And so I think us and the clients are pretty pleased with it. We did lose a few square feet of area. So overall, it was reduced a little bit in floor area. But that center section, having that helps us to break up that elevation and just, I think, improve the design. So that's a summary of the refinements and changes. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Commissioner Say.
Thank you. Gary, just a quick question. Are the windows proposed to be white as we see it in the drawings?
We didn't get into that in detail, but you know, we really didn't have a direction on that at this point.
Okay. I mean, I don't think color is in our purview anyway, I kind of wanted to see them black to kind of go with the wrought iron details and such, but I was just curious.
It's a common color now to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they some of the Spanish houses, they get so just white and brown. So it's kind of nice to have different colors like that. So yeah, it's a good suggestion. I think that would work out really well.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, just a minor one, Gary. I really like the revisions that you made, and I like the addition of the stone on the base on that sort of turret element and on the chimney, but I'm not seeing the stone noted in your exterior elevation keynotes unless I missed it. Have you looked at what type of stone that would be, or?
There's a stone that we've used on some of the other projects that you've seen. That would be what would use. Offhand, I don't know a specification for those.
Okay, well, maybe it's something that staff could track. I don't think it needs to hold up the project, but just I'd want to make sure that, you know, that stone is getting added or is noted and can get tracked as you move forward. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and open up the public hearing to the public. And are there any members of the public who wish to speak at this time? I see Ms. Faff's hand up. Okay, you're on.
I just wanted to say I was familiar and did see the original plan, and I just think that this is amazing transformation from something that was very large and quite plain, but not necessarily plain in a good way. And the commissioners had really good comments. And Gary, sorry, I didn't mean to call you by your first name, but the architect obviously listened and did a great job. It looks really good. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any more members of the public. Do we have any chats or emails on this item?
No, there were no public emails submitted.
Okay, great. Now we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing and move back to the commissioners. Comments? I'll go ahead and start and say that I'm, blown away at the changes and the impact. And I think that this is going to be a gorgeous house. So quite jealous. And I think it's going to be a good addition to the neighborhood there. So that's it for me. Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with Chair Schmid. I think the architect did a great job listening to our comments, addressing them, applying a layer of design details onto a home that was already nicely designed. I look forward to my daily drives up Hillside Drive and seeing the home once it's built. If there aren't any other comments, I'm happy to make a motion to approve this project.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Let's see, do we need to restate the special, or to be more clear about that motion?
Let's see. Yes, okay, I will, my motion will include approval for the design review and the special permits for the declining height envelope, as well as the detached garage's length.
Perfect.
Second.
Great. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Say and a second by Commissioner Tronis. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I want to say, I think the project is a very nice project. I like the changes. I do want to reaffirm my concern about the light fixtures meeting the requirements of the lighting ordinances. It's sort of unclear to me how that gets enforced because we visit, I'm sure planning visits the sites when in the daytime, not at the nighttime. And increasingly I see light pollution in the city. when I'm out walking the dog and stuff. There's somehow we have to get a handle on this. So I'm just going to start reaffirming whenever I see light fixtures that look like we might see bulb image, that's not it. That's a bad thing. So nice project.
Okay, perfect. Then let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Okay. I have my agenda back. So we are moving on to item 8D, 567 Airport Boulevard. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay. Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, the subject site is comprised of 555 and 577 Airport Boulevard, as well as the leased parcel owned by the state, bordering the site along the Sancho's Channel and Burlingame Lagoon. The total site area measures 12.83 acres. The proposed project consists of constructing a new 8-story, 241,679 square foot office, research and development building, and a 6th-level parking garage. The garage will contain 5 levels of covered parking, with the 6th level being open to the sky. The new parking garage and existing surface level parking spaces would provide parking for all 3 buildings on the site. So that would be the 2 existing buildings and the proposed building. The total building area on the site would increase to 501,412 square feet. The following applications are requested for this project. The first being a mitigated negative declaration or a determination that with mitigation measures, there will be no significant environmental impacts as a result of this project. Commercial design review for the proposed design. Conditional use permit for floor area ratio greater than 0.6 FAR. 0.9 FAR is proposed, and a conditional use permit for building height. The building measures 133 feet, 8 stories in height, and the parking structure measures 65 feet in height in the 6 levels, where 65 feet or 5 stories is allowed without a conditional use permit. Staff would note that an application for a conditional use permit allows a request to exceed the development criteria in the zoning district, in this case for FAR and building height. These criteria are not maximums, but may be exceeded if the commission can make the findings for the requested applications. The proposed FAR and building heights are within the development capacity studied in the general plan and EIR prepared for the general plan. On November 23rd of 2020, the Commission held an environmental scoping and design review study meeting where the Commission reviewed the design of the project and provided comments on potential environmental effects to be considered in the CEQA document. The architect submitted a response letter dated September 17th, 2021, and revised plans date stamped September 30th, 2021 to address the Commission's comments. An initial study, mitigated negative declaration, or ISMND, for the project was prepared by ICF, the CEQA consultant for the project, and determined that there were no environmental impacts that could not be mitigated through mitigation measures. During the public review period for the ISMND, the city received comment letters from the California Department of Transportation, the City of San Mateo, and the law offices of Charles S. Brunitsky. A response to comments document was prepared to formally address each comment contained in these letters. Based upon review of the comments received during the public circulation period, there's no evidence to indicate that implementation of the project, including the proposed mitigation measures, would result in a significant environmental impact under CEQA. Furthermore, based on the comments, certain text revisions to the ISMND were included. The text revisions clarify, expand, or update information presented in the ISMND. The revised text does not provide new information that would result in any new significant impact or any substantial increase in the severity of an impact identified in the ISMND. Kirsten Chapman with ICF, the environmental consultant, and Chris Kinzel with TJKM Traffic Consultants are available to answer any questions you may have in those areas. Suggested findings for the requested applications are found on pages 10 through 12 of the staff report. A received after letter was submitted by Charles Barnitsky, dated October 25th, 2021, and that was provided to you all today. This concludes my summary of the staff report. I know the applicants have a brief presentation as well, but before they do that, do you have any questions for staff or for the consultants? Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, Ruben, I should have asked this a long time ago or earlier before the meeting, but so if you don't have this, it doesn't really matter. It's just for reference. Do we by any chance know what the FAR or recall what the FAR is, for example, the Facebook Oculus site, 533 Airport Boulevard, and maybe the one that's on the corner there, I think it's 411 Airport. Do we know any of the FARs for some of those adjacent?
I believe the Facebook Oculus, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is 1.0 FAR.
Okay. That's
411 Airport, I don't know that we have offhand. 533 Airport, I believe, is a 0.9 FAR.
0.9, okay. Okay, well, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions. Then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Hello, I'm Tom Gilman with DES Architects, Redwood City. And my question was, does staff run the slides or should I bring slides up?
We'll run the slides, so we'll bring those up shortly. There we
go. And could we bring up the site plan for just a quick minute? Perfect. So thank you, Chair Schmidt and commissioners. I just wanted to do a very brief overview. This is the same project essentially that we presented to you in November of 2020. We've made a few improvements and responses to some of the comments that you had made at that study session. And so I just wanted to go over those with you quickly. And on the site plan, one of the things I wanted to show is that just below the parking structure, we have added one additional, you can see 3 bus turnout spaces right below the parking structure. We've added one more. We originally had 2, we've added a third. And again, those are key to our TDM plan and making great and easy access through the site for shuttle buses and employer buses was critical to us. And so maybe Planning Manager Sharon, maybe we could go to sheet 6, I believe it is. Oh, this is the view looking into the project. We can see part of the parking structure to the right, and this is building 555 to the left, but we're saying a piece. This is the other view. You saw the first view coming in from Airport Boulevard. And if we go to the next slide, and then this is the view looking across to the project on the south side of the building from 101, looking across Burlingame Lagoon. Next slide. A couple of the comments that Commissioner Loftus had at our meeting was concern about what was our theory here in terms of in the upper view is the previous design that we had shown at that time. But what was the theory here in terms of how the fenestration was being handled? And we've made an adjustment to that, and the lower view is the updated view. And essentially, we have on those top two levels, you can see we've extended the sunshades all the way across. You see they were eliminated bay and a half at the upper view. And then the next 4 bays, the next 4 floors below that, we have adjusted so that there are 2 floors at a time, and then a half bay offset and another 2 floors at a time with the vertical fins. And that reflects exactly the same orientation that we have on the entire north facade and the west facade of the building. So we just carried that same theory around the building so it's consistent on all the sides. So I just wanted to make that comment in response to Commissioner Loftus's comments at that meeting. Maybe we could go to a couple of details here. Number 9. This is a close-up. And again, now we're seeing that north facade. And I think there was a question about what were those vertical lines and how did that work? They're 18-inch deep fins, and they're basically snap-on mullions that extend from the facade. And you can see them along the curved facade here as they continue in the distance. And then this detail on the right, where you can see that every other bay, we have essentially an 18-inch deep fin, and then in between, the one in between is a typical, just a typical cap. It probably projects maybe half, 3/4 of an inch or something of that nature. So it's that rhythm of staggered in and out kind of thing is that you see all the way along this. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll turn the corner and look at the south facade. And in this case, you can see one of those verticals in the very center. And on the south facade, they are 12 inches deep, not 18. But then what you see as the horizontal, and that I had mentioned, we had extended that entire bay near the middle of the building. Those are 24 inches deep sunshades that occur at each floor. Next slide. And then a detail looking at these sort of stair steps that occur. And on the left view, you can see that there's 3 steps that cascade down the left portion of the building. Those had been simply roof kind of elements. Previously, we have converted those to balconies. And so you can see the glass railing that occurs and turns the corner in each of these 3 locations. So the balcony actually, or the building actually opens out on each of those 3 floors with these smaller balconies just on the outside. And then next slide. One of the comments that had come up at our meeting in November was there had been some concern about views of the north facade of the garage from the 533 building, which occurs on Airport Boulevard. And what we have, and the upper view is the design that was presented at that time. We've made a couple of changes in the building, in the parking garage. We moved the ramp. The internal ramp previously had been the center of the 3 bays. We moved that ramp to the north facade so that we would have a lower facade and parapet height. As you can see in the middle portion of the building, it kind of slopes down. So we reduced the apparent height at the majority of the mid part of the building. And then we've also added a significant amount of green screen that would then help enclose that facade in a much more warm and natural manner. And then going to the next slide. And so then this is a section now that shows the relationship. And you can see now that the ramp is on the left third. So you can see that for the bulk of that portion, it's going to be a lower amount of facade that we will see. You can also see this is a straight section relationship. You can see the red line in the upper diagram on the upper right. So views from the 533 building now that had been blocked previously by the 555 building down near the corner and the extreme right of the drawing. That view still is maintained. The parking structure is below that sight line, and so it occurs in the midpoint here. The parking structure is, I think, is about 63.5 feet versus the 533 building is 71 feet. Next slide. One of the additional changes that we made on the site plan was in the left view, this was the previous location of the trash enclosure for the 555 building, and we've relocated that to the back of the building. In the right side here, you can see the new trash enclosure location, which is out at the very end and kind of the southwest corner of the building, so that it maintains a more openness and more of a front door as you come in from Airport Boulevard without that trash enclosure presenting itself before you. Next slide. Commissioner Charonis had made a few comments regarding hoping to be able to improve the facades of the trash enclosure. And the upper view is the previous, at the previous study session. And at the lower view, we've added, you can see this is the new revised design. So we've added additional green screen to help capture that utility building and sort of seed it into the landscaping a bit better. Next slide. And what other change we had made, the left side, you can see in between these two buildings, the 567 and 577 to the left, we had the fire pump room and chemical storage was between those, and we've now moved those to the back of the building. And so in the view on the right, you can see the three small elements that are on the south side in the back of the building. So those have been relocated as well. And then if we go to the next slide, that will show also the previous design, the drawings at the very top, and then the new current design at the bottom here, where we've added additional green screen to those to, again, sort of replicate what we're doing with the trash enclosure, so that that same design concept is carried through with all of the utility elements. Next slide. And then a view of kind of looking down into the project. And if you look closely, kind of lower left, you can see some of those utility elements on the back side of the building. And then on the right side, you can see that relocated trash enclosure for the 555 building. Next slide. And then finally, I just wanted to give you a sense. We have been working with BCDC, and as you probably know, this is, this part of the process occurs after we get Planning Commission approval. But I wanted to show you kind of our discussions with them to date. And essentially on the southern facade, we are improving the light gray color is the existing trail. And so we are improving that bay trail in that facade, and also then improving and adding to all of the landscaping on the project side of the trail. And in addition, adding new street furniture, a new bike station, a bike repair station, additional drinking fountains and trash enclosures and so on, as well as improving the landscape. So anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up as to the direction we're taking as we be discussing this with BCDC. And let me see that, maybe next slide. Yeah, that may be it. And so just wanted to, again, make a comment about the project that Lane Partners are interested in doing a very high quality project. And we are now committing to LEED Gold for this project. And we have a target of trying to get to LEED Platinum. We're not sure we'll get there, but at this point, we are committed to designing and building the building as a LEED Gold project. And also, secondly, I just wanted to mention that because of our submittal dates, the project is not subject to the new electric reach code, but we are committing to build and design the building as an all-electric facility. So it will in fact be an all-electric building. Just wanted to let you know that. Question about why the parking structure is located where it is. And it's essentially, we had looked at relocating it in different locations, but the couple of major issues were keeping it in a location where it didn't impact public sight lines from Airport Boulevard, and also so that we did not disrupt a very easy flow of shuttle buses that come in through the site. And again, these are critical to our overall TDM plan to make sure that we've got, in all ways possible, we can reduce overall traffic for the project, as well as maintain as efficient a parking and circulation on site as we can. So at any rate, thank you so much for your time, and we're here for questions, any questions that you may have. So again, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Vice Chair Loftus.
You know, I got to say, I thank you for the refinements on the project. It looks good. I remember asking a question at the last meeting about whether the glass was really blue, or I think that was my question on this, one of the questions on the project. And I find myself chuckling looking at the very nice renderings, the materials and finishes, and in the graphics package. Very helpful renderings, because the designations for the many glass types are confused somewhat by the gradations, the gradients applied to the renderings. But all of that leads me to ask the question that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to out on the bay in general, and that is the bird safe measures. Can you talk a little bit about bird safe measures on this project and how you feel the glass chosen and the expanses, the type of glass, address the requirements of bird safe design? Sure,
absolutely. The glasses that we're using for the building, we've chosen for the building, are very high energy efficient glass, but they are not reflective. And one of the critical things that for us in selecting glasses for these kinds of buildings are to maintain a sense of transparency, so you can actually see activity within the building. And so we've always shied away significantly from any glass that starts to have two things: either too reflective of an appearance or too black. And because we have the same issue with birds either way. In following the San Francisco design guidelines for bird safety, one of the things that typically is recommended that the lowest 60 feet of major facades that are adjacent to large bodies of water or open spaces that are, I think, 2 acres or larger, is a place where you have to be particularly cautious and careful about bird safety. And so we're committed that on the south facade, the one you see from, as we looked across the water, the lagoon, the lowest 60 feet, which will be 4, maybe 5 floors, will be bird safe glass. And we're still going back and forth between whether that's a line, whether it's the fine line pattern or fine dot pattern, but we'll be using one of those approved methods for dealing with that. And we've had a number of projects where we've worked with the Audubon Society on meeting those kinds of standards. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Then moving forward, then I'm going to go ahead and go out. Oh, there you go. Oh, Commissioner Gall, sorry.
Thank you very much. I just had a question actually about the traffic impact analysis. Is that something that, is there someone that can talk about that?
We do have Chris Kinzel from TJKM here who could address that. They had prepared the traffic study.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. I have to admit I did not read it, like I would read a lot of things, just because there's so much information here. But I had a couple questions. Is in the analysis, did you include the projected traffic from the drive-in or the Facebook project? Because that hasn't started, they haven't occupied that building yet. But yes, is that included in the analysis?
Yes, it is.
So you're assuming that that building would be at full capacity, and that is taken into account here?
Correct.
Okay. What about, there was something that came up in the letter from this Charles Brunitsky that I thought about too. And there's a couple of spots out there where we go down to one lane in each direction, namely over by the softball field and then also by the SPCA. It seems to me those are sort of choke points, and I don't know that was addressed in this.
The choke points normally are at intersections where traffic signals are affected or affect the capacity of the roadway. At the areas where there's just a single lane in each direction, the capacity is higher there because it's not interrupted by traffic signals. So that's typically not an area of concern, and we examined that sort of qualitatively and felt that would continue to be the case, that was not a problem area.
Okay. So then if I go on to page 47 in table 13, you have the intersection level of service analysis, cumulative plus project conditions. You have, looks like there's 24 grades for the level of service. And I got to tell you, I don't know if that's acceptable or not. If I brought home a report card that looked like that, though, I know I wouldn't be going to the dance on the weekend. But you out of 24, you have 1A and mostly C's and D's. And are we finding that acceptable?
That satisfies the city requirements. I think in many cases, the issue is what is the level of service without the project in place, and what does the project add to that? And in all cases, we found that the project had a very minor effect, and it was all within appropriate levels of significance. So yes, there are some problems in the area, and typically in cumulative conditions in the 20 years in the future. And but with the addition of project traffic, the standards of significance that the city has established are satisfied.
Okay. And do we have any information on when or if an interchange is going to be developed at the Peninsula Avenue hopefully on-ramp?
It's a project that's being considered now. I saw the conceptual drawings for that, located in San Mateo, but sponsored by, I think, the regional agency. But the short answer is no. I'm not sure if that's scheduled at this point, programmed yet, but it's certainly needed, no question about it.
Okay. But yeah, all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing no hands, then I'm going to go ahead and ask if we have any members of the public who wish to speak at this time. And I see a Michael Ochoa. Okay, sir. You unmute yourself. We're ready for you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We can hear you.
All right. Good evening, Chair Schmidt and fellow commissioners. My name is Michael Ochoa, and I'm a field representative for Carpenters Local 217. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on the 567 Airport project. Having been a part of the Carpenters for 20 years, I can speak directly on the positive impact it has had on my family and myself. I was able to start my career here in San Mateo County and have the pleasure to work in cities all through the county. Having the developer commit to using a union signatory contractor will provide the residents of Burlingame an opportunity to start a career that does not discriminate on whether you're a woman or a man, and will pay you equally for the work you do. This project will provide hundreds of jobs that will have a direct impact on those workers and their families, providing a livable wage with health care and benefits. So on behalf of 38,000 members here in Northern California, thank you for your time, and I ask that you approve this project.
Okay. Moving on to the next person, Moises Valeda. Okay, if you unmute yourself, we're ready for you. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Smith and Planning Commissioners. My name is Moises Villeda. I'm also a field representative for Carpenters Union Local 217. I come to you tonight to urge you to approve the application for mitigated negative declaration, commercial design review, and conditional use permits for the 567 Airport Boulevard Office and Research Project. The 567 Airport Boulevard Office Research and Development Project will help to create much needed work opportunities and much needed jobs. Jobs that provide access to medical coverage, not just for the workers on the project, but also for their families. Jobs and pathways to careers in construction for journeyman carpenters, apprentices, young men and women, single mothers entering the workforce, and returning military veterans. Apprenticeship. The NorCal Carpenters Apprenticeship Program is state certified and it bears no cost to taxpayers. Apprentices will have the opportunity to learn and perform both in class and on the field. Jobs that have family supporting dignified wages. These great benefits are made available when developers choose responsible, family-oriented general contractors to build in our communities. I want to say thank you. Thank you to Lane Partners for your selection of Defcon Construction to build your project, your vision, that is this project. I want to say thank you. Thank you to Defcon Construction for being a conscientious partner who understands these important issues as they affect our community and our membership. Chair and Commissioners, I urge you to approve the application for mitigated negative declaration, commercial design review, and conditional use permits for the 567 Airport Boulevard Office Research and Development Project. I thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on to the next. Jay Rodriguez.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hey, good evening, Chair Schmidt and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is James Rodriguez, and I'm a journeyman carpenter with Local 217. I've been a carpenter for 10 years, and the majority of my work during my career has me driving an hour plus each way every day. This project would allow myself and other carpenters like me to work close to home, making a decent, livable wage, and work towards a respectable retirement, all while being able to spend more time with my family. I hope to see this project approved and moving forward soon, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next one. Jason Rojas. Mr. Rojas, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, good evening, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jason Rojas. I'm a third period carpenter apprentice from the Local 217. I'm actually a local. I live in San Mateo. I think this project would benefit pretty much all my brothers and sister carpenters from this project like this. It would allow me to build something to be proud of in my own town. all the while advancing myself in the trade and working up a respectful retirement. It would also allow me to be actually closer to home and spend more time with my family. I'm looking forward to seeing this project move forward. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person is Matthew Miller. You may unmute yourself and we're ready for you.
Okay, hi there, I'm Matthew Miller. You can hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm a resident of Burlingame. I'm also a member of the Carpenters Union, and I'm urging everyone here to approve this project. I think it's a great project. It's going to provide a lot of good jobs for people in the area. Being a carpenter has afforded me a great living, and I love the city of Burlingame. I'm right here on Paloma Avenue. I've made a great living through the trade with all my brothers and sisters. We work hard. This is going to be done by skilled and trained workforce that's going to make sure you have a beautiful building for us to look at. It's really exciting to see something like this come into the area. So I want to thank everyone for their time, Chair Schmidt and all you commissioners. Tom Gilman, thank you for your presentation. That was very enlightening. Please consider passing this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands. Planning Manager Huron, do we have any public comment or emails?
We do. We have just one public comment email, and I'll read that now. And I believe there's David. Oh, I saw someone. Yeah, David Morrow has his hand up. So
yep.
Let me
Why don't
go
you
ahead
go
and
through
read.
yours, and then I'll go back if necessary.
Yep, sounds good. So I would like to express my concern with the future of this building causing further traffic congestion at the Humane Society on-ramp, especially once the Facebook building is fully occupied. Caltrans has already taken a lane away on the on-ramp. The traffic is already an issue without this building and Facebook being occupied. What are your plans to resolve this issue should the building pass? Thank you. And this is from Rocky Allen. And I believe Mr. Kinzel already addressed this issue, but certainly he's here to answer any other questions you may have about it.
Okay. And then we have a hand up for David Morrow. Unmute yourself and we're ready for you.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. My name is David Morrow. I'm a almost 30-year resident of Burlingame. I live on Columbus Avenue. I also represent International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, electricians in San Mateo County. And like my brother carpenters, I do believe this is a very good project for all the building trades in general. Also, I do walk out there quite often with my dog, and any improvements to that area where they on the walking trail is greatly needed in that area. So I believe using quality contractors as DevCon and DES architects, and along with lane partners, I don't think you can get a better group together who could build you a project that will do Burlingame justice. So I urge all commissioners to approve this project. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Great, thank you. And we have Joe Fitz. Joe, you can unmute yourself. Joe, if you unmute yourself, there
we go. Here we go. Thank you. Hello, Commissioner. I'm Joe Fitzgerald, Assistant Business Manager for the Electricians Union here in San Mateo County. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the upcoming project located at 567 Airport Boulevard. This project is located in an area that continues to be revitalized with new development that will help this part of Burlingame provide good tap into the growing need for biotech and life science research facilities. In addition, the developer has agreed to use local union contractors and the members that they employ that live and work along the peninsula. This provides good paying jobs for the members that have helped build these type of facilities over the last few decades throughout San Mateo County. By using a local workforce, this will ensure that the wages earned are spent here as opposed to the importing of workers and exporting of wages to another area. I speak in support of this upcoming project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I'm seeing the end of the hands. Tom, did you have something you wanted to add before I close the public hearing?
Well, I just wanted to add, and thank you very much for from the several union members who have spoken for the project this evening, but I just did want to add that Lane Partners is in fact committed to using all union labor on the project. So just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that's the case. So
Great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to fellow commissioners. Comments? Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I'll just start off by reiterating my on my earlier comment. I think this is a terrific project. I think the refinements are spot on. Thank you for addressing those comments. The graphics package is particularly helpful to make the assessments that we have to make above and beyond, just the numbers that have to be addressed. So I think the project should move forward. Frankly, I think it's a very nice project, and it's going to be good for that part of the city.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, overall, I like the project. I think it's designed very well. I think it's a very handsome building, and I think as a unit it could work. But I do have problems with the traffic study. I mean, I'm out there enough to know what's going on and to have experienced some of the traffic delays in those areas. And quite frankly, I'm looking at this table 13, and there are 24 categories that they're giving a level of service, and 19 of those 24s are a C, a D, or an E. And I realize those don't translate to passing or failing grades in school or whatever, but I don't find them really acceptable for what I'd want to drive in. I mean, of the 5 that are above, that are a B or an A, 2 of them are in and out of the project driveway. Well, yeah, it'll be fine there, but I am not seeing how this is not going to have a huge traffic impact, and not just this project, but the other projects. And I think it deserves more study and more a better look. I just don't know that I can accept the environmental review for the because of the traffic study. But overall, I like the design and the look of it. I think it's a good looking building. I think it's handsome. It looks really great in the perspective drawings and the renderings on the water. But I think we are digging ourselves into a hole that we're going to have a hard time getting out of with all the development out there.
Okay, Commissioner Toronis.
Yeah, I too like the project. I really appreciate the refinements that have been made by DES and brought back before us. I appreciate Commissioner Loftus asking about the bird safe glazing. And I like the detailing that's been proposed. Aside from just the idea of the bird safe glazing, I just generally like the idea of the transparency of the glazing and being able to see activity and not having these sort of anonymous, reflective glass buildings that, you don't really know what's happening inside. So, I like that as a detail. And so I think that overall, this is an area of increased FAR that we've allotted for within our general plan. We have traffic demand management plans that are being put in place for projects like this. I get what Commissioner Gall is saying, in terms of the level of service at intersections, but I have to accept the traffic analysis that shows that this project isn't contributing to those existing intersections to the point of significance where we would have to do anything further under CEQA. So, I can accept the findings of the mitigated negative declaration. I think that it's a handsome building, and I think it not only will fit in, but will actually complement and raise the bar for the designs of the buildings in that neighborhood. So I can make the findings for the commercial design review, and the conditional use permits for the height and the floor area are tending towards what we are already putting in place with the new general plan and the ordinances that are forthcoming. So I think that the project should move forward.
Great, thank you. I agree with what has been said. I think that the FAR and the uses in that area are in line with what we have been looking at. And I think it's in line with, what we've seen in the adjacent properties. It's a big piece of property and it's being utilized. But I don't think to excess any different than some of the others in the area. So I can make those findings as well. I do appreciate the effort by Mr. Gilman and his team. It continues to get better, I think, each time I see it. And I do want to see it move forward as well. So let's see, Vice Chair Loftus, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's worth revisiting for just a minute the concerns about traffic. We all have concerns about traffic. It's an issue. But the traffic consultant made a point, made a statement that it meets that the results, the outcome meets the requirements of the city of Burlingame. And I went looking for that, and I found on page 12, I hope I'm looking in the right place, that there are published requirements by the city, and what this reads to say that the city of Burlingame general plan EIR establishes significant impact criteria, and it's increase in traffic is considered to have a significant impact if it meets one of two criteria: moving a signal intersection from D to E or a signal intersection from E to F. And that's what we've got to go on. I don't like it either, Commissioner Gall, but it's important to recognize that we have design criteria that folks have to meet. And if we don't like it, we need to change the design criteria would have to change. So I share the concern, but this is what we've got, I think.
Okay. Any further comments? Commissioner Tronos?
Yeah, I was going to head for a motion, Mr. Chair. That's okay.
Through the chair, sorry, Commissioner Toronis, if I may interject here. If we could have two separate motions and actions, the first being on the CEQA and the next being on the entitlements. The entitlements can be grouped together, but if you can do the CEQA first, and then we'll move on to the entitlements. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept and approve the mitigated negative declaration based on the analysis that we have from this, the environmental consultant and the information in the staff report.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Tronos and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, then let's vote. Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I just want to make one other comment. I understand what Commissioner Loftus had brought up, because I did read that this meets the city standards, although I'm just not going to agree with them. Like I say, I've been out there. I've been in traffic now out there, and those buildings are not even occupied yet. Like I say, I think that we're going in the wrong direction with this until some of those roads are widened, the peninsula on-ramp interchange is developed, and a closer look is taken at this.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Can we vote?
Commissioner Gall,
Nay.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1-0-2. Now, should we move on to the next motion, or do I need to read?
No, you can move on to the next motion and then read the appeal rights after.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Do we have a second motion now?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the project for the commercial design review, get the conditional use permit for floor area ratio and the conditional use permit for the building height based on the recommended findings in the staff report for the project at 567 Airport Boulevard.
And
Thank
I'll
you, sir.
second that.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0-0-2. Okay, so an action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Okay. That moves us on to item 8E. And this is our comprehensive update of Title 25 zoning. And I believe Director Gardner is in charge.
I will, we're going to tag team on this one, but I'll make the initial presentation.
Never mind.
Yeah. All right.
I just thought since he showed his face, he was ready to go.
I'm ready, but
yeah. All right, so here we go. So the City Council adopted the general plan in January of 2019. Review and adoption of a zoning ordinance update is necessary to implement the goals and policies of the general plan. City staff, along with MIG, our consultant that's helping us prepare the zoning code update, have completed preparation of the draft for your review and recommendation this evening to the City Council. Just to recall your memory, planning staff held several study sessions with the Commission between March and July of this year to review certain sections of the code. The Commission initially reviewed the draft zoning ordinance update at their last meeting on October 12th. Comments and direction was provided by the Commission, and responses by staff are included in the staff report this evening for you. At the October 12th meeting, staff noted that there were several items that were not included in the draft at that time. These items were completed and include the transportation demand management, or chapter 25.43. A TDM plan would be required for new multi-unit residential developments of 10 units or more and commercial developments of 10,000 square feet or more. And this would require these projects to incorporate TDM strategies that achieve a 20% reduction in vehicle trip generation rates. So that chapter is now in the code, which wasn't there for you on October 12th, but we've included that now. The other item was adding duplex development standards to implement Senate Bill SB 9. So in Article 2 of the code, Section 25.20.080 has been added as an overlay district. It's called the 2-unit residential overlay to provide basic objective development standards to comply with SB 9. Standards are based on existing R1 standards for building size, lot coverage, setbacks, and building height, so that new projects would retain the house scale of the neighborhoods. So that is also included in there. There are also two additional items. Adoption of the zoning update ordinance also involves two amendments to the general plan. The first being an increase to the floor area ratio for office and research development projects fronting Old Bayshore Highway in the Innovation Industrial District. A general plan amendment has been prepared to amend the Innovation Industrial Land Use Development Standards to specify up to 2.75 FAR for office and research development uses, but those would only apply to the parcels that front on Old Bayshore Highway. And the second was additional specificity was added to sea level rise goals and policies. And if you have any questions about that, I think Kevin can answer those questions. Staff would note that comment letters to the Planning Commission were received from Chris Holmes and Jennifer Foth. Mr. Holmes' letter concerning the definition of personal services was addressed by adding additional clarifications to that definition. Staff reviewed Ms. Foth's letter and notes that suggested cleanup edits can be addressed by staff. We can take care of those prior to going to the City Council. The letter also contains several policy questions that the Commission can review this evening and include in your recommendation to City Council. So that includes my summary of the staff report. I don't know, Kevin, if there's anything you wanted to add. Otherwise, we can take questions or go to public comment.
Nothing from me. So yeah, I think we can go to questions.
Okay, fellow commissioners, do we have some questions? Commissioner Tronis.
Thank you. Okay, so I noticed in reading through the added section 2520-080 for basically the duplex ordinance. So my question is just for clarification. So it basically captures all of the development standards that apply in the R1 zoning district, right, Kevin or Ruben? With these four exceptions that are in this below paragraph D, right?
Right.
Okay. Then in terms of the lot split section, we have those, there's reference to a development standard 2520.090D. But I'm not seeing that. Is that in development?
That should be 080D, sorry.
080?
That's a typo, yeah.
Okay, then that's why I didn't find it. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, 080D. Oh, so it goes back to and captures those same ones.
Yeah, and this is following, the structure of the legislation is kind of odd in that it lays out a kind of global set of exclusions, and then when you get to the lot split, it says those plus. So it is kind of referencing back.
Okay, so we are just referencing back to those same standards plus those exceptions. So
that's correct.
Okay,
but yeah, thank you for catching that. I'm sure other people would be confused as well.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I have a few in that same area. When doing a duplex, not taking in consideration the lot split yet, but when just converting to a duplex, is there a right to do an ADU or JADU along with the duplex?
It appears that is the case. The various legal analyses that are out there have raised some questions, but it appears based on a pretty literal reading of the legislation that yes, provided there's not a lot split, there could be an ADU and a JADU in addition to a duplex.
And does that then follow the same ADU legislation that has no FAR impact and no review?
Correct.
And
Yeah, so it'd be the same, then it would apply under the ADU chapter of the zoning and go through that same process and ministerial review.
Okay, do we have, so then with the duplex, then do we still have a lot coverage maximum, or does legislation get rid of that?
So with the duplex, what the legislation does actually give more flexibility to municipalities than, for example, the ADU legislation, which is pretty prescriptive. So the route that we've taken with this chapter in the zoning is to use the same standards that would apply to a single family house. So it'd be the same lot coverage, same FAR, same setbacks, with the exception that the legislation allows a setback of 4 feet. So that's probably the only variation from what would ordinarily be allowed in a single family house,
Okay.
depending on the
And
lot size.
I'm not necessarily seeing, or are we thinking that in the next round, permeable surfaces and things such that if we're suddenly doing duplexes, are we suddenly now doing 9.5-foot driveways on both sides of the property and taking away all of our landscape?
That could be an issue. I know, yeah, I think in the next phase, we could look at, I mean, that's a good point, that should there be 2 units with 2 driveways, that is more paved area. So we could look at standards that are appropriate to, 2-unit structure if it has 2 driveways. I think we could also look at whether the city is obligated to allow 2 driveways. I don't want to kind of weigh into that right now, but those are the kinds of things we can look at. Like I said, the legislation does provide much more discretion to cities overall. So I think this is a sort of first approach to just say whatever you can do with a house, you can do with a duplex, but I think we can become more refined. It'll just take more time.
So then with, many of our neighborhoods, we have the detached garages and we encourage that detached garage in the back. We have a few areas where the attached garage at the front makes sense and works with the neighborhood. But if we're now, I haven't seen too many of the duplexes where the garage isn't front and center. Or do we have any discretion to that in changing the neighborhood pattern of largely detached in the rear to suddenly now, due to lot coverage and driveways, being forced into approving more attached garages in the front?
A duplex may choose to put the garage in the back. And in fact, because we're tiering it to the single family standards, which provides a bonus for those rear garages, somebody building a duplex may like that same bonus. So that same incentive is there.
But so today we have a bit more discretion in that an attached garage at the front of the property needs to have some basis in neighborhood applicability. Does that go out and not, that's not as empirical as we might?
Yeah, there could not be a subjective decision. So if it was a garage in the front and the kind of neighborhood compatibility finding would not apply because that's subjective, not objective.
So then could we be looking at a radius clause of applicability, saying that, okay, if this is going to be the case, we need 40% of your closest neighbors within 500 feet need to also have attached garages facing forward?
That would be objective, and that is something we could look at, those types of formulas, which, again, then anybody can come to the same conclusion by doing the math.
So, okay. Do we have a minimum lot size right now?
Yeah,
Minimum lot size 5,000 square feet. Sorry, Kevin.
yeah, thank you. You answered it.
Yeah, for creation of new lots is 5,000. We do have some that are substandard that are less than 5,000, but those are existing. However, with SB9, it allows you to go down to 1,200 square feet minimum lot size.
But would that not be 40% of 5,000 and therefore a different number than 1,200?
Right, you can split it. Well, if you do a lot split, right, you'd have to do at least, I think, 40, 60.
So you'd be 2,000 feet minimum and a 3,000 on the other, unless you had a non-conforming.
Right, that's correct. We do have some that are maybe 4,000, maybe even under 4,000, but not too many.
Did I see that we have is a non-conforming lot size a reason to not lot split?
No.
Okay. And then I think I was Commissioner Tronis's question maybe is on my last one here with this. I noticed that there didn't seem to be the same applicabilities in the lot split as there is in the duplex. Is that because they're referencing back to that and I missed that?
That's correct. So all of the restrictions that apply to the duplex also apply to the lot splits.
Okay. And then a question in a different area. Work, live. We talked about this a little bit before. My question is, for the projects that have recently come through with the work, live situation, what advantages are they getting in those projects versus just going straight condo?
I think had they had the choice of going straight condo, they might have done that. I don't want to speak for those developers, but under the current zoning that's in place, we were not allowing straight up residential in those zones. So they went with the live work. And that was an outcome of the downtown specific plan, which was trying to figure out what's really appropriate for those blocks of California Drive. I think fast forward 10 years from now, the new code as proposed would allow residential. I think we've felt that, the projects have more residential qualities than not. And certainly someone could do a more heavy on the work than the live, but it seems like really the demand is for mostly live.
So then it was mostly about location, not necessarily getting a benefit of square footage, height, size, or anything like that, that would make it a more attractive project.
Yeah, so when the downtown plan was prepared, part of it was the presence of the auto repair facilities. I think the CAC at the time that was devising that plan thought live work might be more compatible. As it turns out, those auto uses are the ones that are disappearing with the new development. So it's turned out differently than what was expected. And that happens. You put a plan together and then see what happens. So I think this looks at that history and says that probably the demand is for more of a residential approach. Not to say someone couldn't do live work, but it's kind of played out differently.
Well, it just kind of comes back to those requirements of, you got 150 square feet of workspace. That's not really saying maker, fabrication, distillery, nothing. It's just living space. And so I think that in a way confuses that section from becoming real work, live, which maybe would be more appropriate in a Rollins Road neighborhood to encourage, but I'd almost rather see more fabrication than live work.
The live work standards that are in this, this code were devised more with the kind of Rollins Road setting in mind. The prior live work definition in the current code was much more, it really didn't have a lot of detail at all. It basically described something similar to a studio apartment. So these new standards were developed to try to get more into, how much space do you really need to have a proper working environment and some of the other standards. And we would hope that maybe we do see some of those over in Rollins Road in the future.
Okay, so it doesn't seem that then this prevents anything from happening, but it's not necessarily being specific towards true fabrication style work live.
It does provide the options should someone want to do that, and importantly, they can then take it out of their commercial floor area rather than residential. So there are some kind of carrots in there, but it's you need a developer that really wants to develop it in the first place, and we haven't seen that yet.
Okay, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate my fellow commissioners listening to all my questions. I'm done, and we'll go to Vice Chair Loftus.
Well, all of your questions, thank you. All of your questions have opened the floodgates questions for me. They were great questions, and I jumped immediately to some post-apocalyptic Burlingame as a result of it. So the first thing I want to suggest is that, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but here's a concern I have. The 2-unit residential overlay section A, purpose. This section regulates 2-unit residential development. Good. Then there's a sentence down below that says a proposed housing development containing no more than 2 residential units shall be considered ministerially. I would read that to include single family development proposals, despite the fact that it falls under this section. So I would be very specific and say a proposed 2-unit housing development will be considered ministerially, because otherwise you might get all sorts of people coming in saying, you know what, I'm going to do a single family home, but the code says that anything less than 2 units or less can be done ministerially. I don't want to go to planning commission. All of that also raises the question, many of the questions that Chair Smith were asking raise the question, what's going to happen to the design guidelines? Are we going to make any? These are not subject to design review, so the design guidelines have no bearing on them at all. So what that says to me is that if the entire city of Burlingame, every resident in the city of Burlingame wanted to build a 2-unit home on their property, they could build whatever they want to within certain objective guidelines that we put in place, which I think are forthcoming, right? We're not there yet, but there will be objective guidelines, but no subjective guidelines, no design review to manage the character of the city. And I mean, this is feeling a little crazy to me. It feels like it's a really slippery slope because over time, one would expect, we're seeing already that folks are maximizing their build out on their property for single family homes. And sometimes they decide after they built them out at great cost that it makes sense to sell them for 3 or 4 or 5 times the cost of what they build them out. And so, if people are already maxing out their property for short-term use and long-term gain, one would expect the maxing out over long term of the properties in Burlingame and other cities. 2-unit residentials got to be worth more than 1-unit residential, I would imagine. So this is all sort of, this is crazy, it seems to me. And I know we have no choice. I understand that it's mandated by the state, but so we don't intend to change the design guidelines as a result. Do we have some sense of what the timing is on the non-subjective, non-design guideline criteria? How soon are we going to start rolling that out?
Let me back up first. I think we can look at this language in the purpose. It is derived directly from the legislation, but whether we can specify it only applies to 2 units, that I think we can look at that as this moves along to the city council. The intent is that it applies to the 2 units, but you do make a good point. Somebody could say, this is for a single family house and I'm doing it under this section, and and it's ministerial. And I don't believe that is the intent of the legislation. So
Oh, I can't imagine it is, but it worries me that there's a loophole there that needs plugging, it seems to me.
we'll look at plugging that. I think, I don't think that was the intent. And like I said, it's literally just copying the text from the legislation.
Okay, that's great. What, do we have some sense of how all this is going to roll out? I mean, this gets things started, but what happens if someone comes in next week and decides that they want to build a 2-unit or 2 months from now? Will we be ready for that?
So they will need to wait until January 1st.
Okay.
That's when the legislation becomes effective. But that is why we want standards in now, because whether we have standards or not, they can come in on January 1st and say, I'm ready to build a duplex. And if we don't have standards in place, we're kind of at the mercy of interpreting the state legislation, which is doesn't give a lot in terms of it gives a lot of options for cities to put in regulations, but if we don't have the regulations, it leaves a lot to interpretation, and we'd rather not be in that position.
Okay, well, I can tell you're way ahead of me on this. I just started to worry about it, and I jumped to, as I say, post-apocalyptic Burlingame with very expensive houses.
Sure.
More expensive. Thanks.
Okay, Chair, Commissioner Say.
Okay, we've talked about this subject long enough, but I just want to ask, so I don't think I have any other additional questions than what's already been covered for this particular section on the SB 9. But is there going to be some form of a committee that may include planning commissioners to help work through the objective standards that we could apply and just kind of look for the loopholes and all of that to button everything up before January 1st?
I don't think we can do that before January 1st, but the intention is to have that type of committee after January 1st. So what you see in the code right now is meant to be a sort of stopgap just to have something in place. And then we anticipate in phase 2 to have a more in-depth consideration of standards and both loopholes and opportunities, and just how can we form the standards to create the type of buildings that the city would like to see. It may end up that it's fairly similar to what's being drafted right now, but this was meant to be a sort of simple first step just to have something in place by January 1st. We expect there would be a committee, and it may even include some council members if it's a joint committee. So we'll put together a work program for that.
Okay, great, thank you. On to a couple other things. One quick little typo, just because I know I'm going to forget to email. It's just Article 3, page 4. That figure I think should be 25.30-2, and not -1. Just a tiny little.
Thank you. Otherwise, we have 2 figures with the same number, which is not
right. So on about the story polls, I think it's at Article 6, page 20, talks about the story polls, item C. I'm wondering if we want to make a more implicit recommendation regarding the installation of story polls. I know, what does it say here? It's encouraged to install. I think, just saying it like that, basically most people would just ignore it and say, I'm not going to put anything up unless it's required of me. And I'm just wondering if there could be anything that's more specific. Let's see, I wrote down some notes about, there's some language in Article 6, page 21, or the next page, under A3 findings, the placement of the proposed construction does not have a substantial impact on adjacent properties or on the character of the immediate neighborhood. So if there's some kind of language that can be just more specific about a recommendation, because I'm more concerned about, we spent an hour at the beginning of this meeting, had almost an hour talking about a project and its potential impact on neighbors. And we didn't think that there is in that particular case, but there are cases where it really could. And people should either be talking to their neighbors or something just more specific, so we don't drag out these applications, make them see us once, then we send them away, and then they have to put up story polls and they have to see us again. And if there's a way to just more objectively state that if there's some potential of you blocking a distant bay view, make it very clear what kind of views are protected and such. I wonder if that could help applicants and even neighbors in better understanding what's protected and not protected. And anyway, it's just a suggestion there. It just right now, as it's written, it just looks like just ignore it until you're required to put it in.
Yeah, we appreciate your feedback. I mean, what we have in here is we don't have the story poll section in our current code. So one of the reasons why we included it as an encouragement is because there are many Hillside area construction permits that are approved without them coming to you. So I would say very rare did they get called up for review. Now, given that we've had 2 recently called up for review, but the concern might be is that many of these cases, there's clearly no view blockage. So we didn't want to make it a requirement necessarily for all Hillside area permits. So we took it to the next step and said encourage. Now you're right. I mean, when people read that, they may just blow it off and they'll wait until the planning commission tells them to install the story poles. So, and it's very difficult to decide as staff which ones should have story poles and which ones shouldn't at the initial stage. So, but we could look at the language and factor some of that other language that's in the other section where, if something about, if there is clear view blockage or long distant views in this neighborhood, you may want to think about adding them ahead of time. That could save you a lot of time, moving forward. But I don't think we would go to the extent of requiring every project to install them.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think we should require it, but I think just adding language that to help the applicant better understand what might be asked of them if there are view blockages. I don't know if it's getting signatures from neighbors immediately. I don't know if it's something that to help making sure that neighbors are getting some visuals too, that there's a project being proposed down the street and maybe they don't know any better until it's built. So I don't know, it's just an area that really bothers me. I feel like we can help people do this better. And so just a suggestion on the language being a little bit more clear or just more direct or guiding the applicant more why it might be suggested.
We could perhaps think about perhaps requiring story poles be installed if a Hillside area permit gets called up for review. So, I mean, that could be a level where they would be installed prior to coming to your review. So we can think about that a little bit more. But we thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Commissioner Say?
Yes.
Before you move on to that one, can I just add for a second a thought on that? What if we were a bit more deliberate in getting signatures or letters from the adjoining 8 properties that share borders, etc.? Now, granted, not everybody's going to respond, agreed. But it does seem like tonight we got, trampled by people who hadn't voiced any concern before, and therefore we were in no position to offer them much in the meeting. And had there been an effort to get signatures from the adjoining properties, those people would have either had to write their letter of objection, send in their photographs of objection, so that we actually have something, because otherwise it's I think onerous on the property owner too to wait longer or put up the story poles. to me, those other properties could have taken 3 pictures at their windows and we could have said, don't see it. Or I do see it. Wow, we probably should take this further. I mean, in this age of COVID, I really don't want to go in their house. So take their own pictures and we'll just have to trust their pictures coming out the windows mean something as a starting point. And then if they're not willing to do that, then they don't really have a lot of say when it does get brought up.
And that's something that perhaps doesn't need to be in the code, but it could be staff direction prior to being scheduled on an agenda.
It's just trying to think how to make that meeting go better.
Yeah, just guidance.
Because those hillside permits have been tough.
Yeah.
And people have spent a lot of money on a lot of plans to get really beat up badly.
Well, people are spending a lot of money to get their views. So to get them blocked, as I can see why people are protecting their views. But I think people need to be educated too on what kind of views we will protect or that we do protect, as opposed to just any view of a street, of a tree, of a roof. Yeah,
and I would say that staff does a great job at anytime questions come up, if a neighbor is questioning calling up a hillside area permit, staff does a great job explaining long distance views, what the commission reviews. So yeah, we definitely spend a little time with the neighbors to make sure they clearly understand the project.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Thank you. Anyway, just trying to make that less painful. Okay, let's see. And then what did I had okay, so a suggestion was made to require that a written statement be submitted which addresses how a proposed project complies with the findings for design review. So I took a note of Article 6, page 16. I don't know what I wanted to say about that. I think I know what I wanted to say about that. This is where you're talking, I think you've been talking about having a new form or something for applicants to prove how they're meeting design review standards.
Right.
So what my concern about this part is like is it the variance or the special permit forms where there's a number of questions that are asked and you have to write and answer a paragraph and you answer these questions. I seem to see a lot of kind of repeat answer, like as in one paragraph is written and then it's like copied through the entire form. And we're really not gaining any more information by reading from paragraph to paragraph. It's like just kind of like a cookie cutter. And I'm just wanted to, note that if whatever form or questions we develop, that they're very specific. I know I had shared a document with another city with you all before, where people can specifically identify, detached garages, attached garages, whatever it might be. And roof forms and things. I just wanted to, again, caution us on being too general with some questions that won't help anybody, make them do a lot of work, but not really help us or you. So that was my
that's helpful. I think the key in designing that form is to guide them towards specific items for them to address rather than just a vague response. So we can work on it.
Exactly. Thank you. I think those are my questions.
Great. Do we have any further questions at this point? Okay. It seems to me then now's that time for me to open up to the public and see if there are any questions from the audience. Okay, I see that we have Denise Morrow.
Give it a second. Sometimes there's a delay in Zoom and promoting to panelists.
And Chair Schmidt, I do have one public comment email, so I can read that after.
Okay, great.
Or perhaps now, while Denise is coming
Perhaps,
in.
yes.
Okay, let's
for
do
it.
that. All right, let me pull it up here. All right, dear Planning Commission, as invested landowners on the Bayshore, we at Divco West and Woodstock have reviewed the draft zoning code in detail and made a few suggested clarifications and revisions and submitted them to city staff for their consideration. These are not yet reflected in this draft, but we look forward to working with city staff to discuss these potential modifications in coming weeks. Thank you. This is from Virginia Calkins from Divco West.
Great, thank you. Do we have Denise Morrow promoting?
Let me try again. The hand is down, but.
Well, why don't we then go to Ms. Pfaff, and then if Ms. Morrow comes back.
Hi, yeah, I had, I submitted a page of, well, they're kind of general comment, well, policy comments, and of them, if I just want to ask one mainly specific question, and that is, these over wide driveways, we're mentioning minimum sizes, but I don't think we've ever mentioned a maximum. And it does concern me that as we go into this discussion of well, the duplexes and the lot splits, it seems to me this is going to be a problem. And if not now, I just ask that you can look at this later when we get more, well, as much as possible, as we can look into very specific objective standards as this law apparently requires. So I just see, I have to echo what Vice Chair Loftus said about this being a mess. It's just a mess. I mean, I'm just going to say it as the public member of the public who pays attention. I'm just appalled at what this could become if it goes awry. And so I feel like we really need to be on it. So thank you in advance.
Thank you. Did we get, I see Denise Morrow in the audience.
There she is.
Okay. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you have an opportunity to speak right now. Okay, if you decided to take your hand down, that's fine. We'll move on. Okay, well, you still working any magic there, Director Gardner?
I tried, but I wasn't getting anything.
Well, that's fine. So seeing no further hands out in the general public, then we'll close the public hearing. Do we have further questions or comments? I do sympathize with Ms. Pfaff's comment of a minimum or maximum on the driveways. I mean, we're already at risk of becoming denser, and there's many parts of the city where parking is already making it impossible to use the streets and or put out your garbage. So more driveways doesn't make it better. Mr. Tronis, are you on my wavelength on this one, or you got something different you want to ask about?
No, I just wanted to make another comment. I agree with that comment. I never thought about that, but of defining a maximum for a driveway, it's probably a good idea, because one of the things that we are seeing is that a lot of people, and maybe this is an enforcement issue, but number of people that are wanting to park in front of their house outside of their driveway. And, just we're starting to see cars parked in front of houses a little bit more frequently these days. And we had an email, if anybody's seen them in our inbox, our city inbox, somebody pointing out that what's happening. I just wanted to comment a little bit more on the duplex ordinance. And I've been thinking a lot about this. Our office has been thinking a lot about this and where this might head. And, I think whether one chooses to fight this issue, which we really can't, or tolerate this issue, which you can if you choose, or you can, or embrace the issue, regardless, we still have to try to know it as best as we can. And I think it causes me to not try to have a crystal ball, but try to predict or try to see where this could go. And what I'm finding a little bit difficult is trying to imagine a builder or developer or property owner who may want to scrape their lot tending more towards a duplex that they might rent versus building, a 4 or 5 bedroom house with an ADU like we've been seeing as a more attractive build. And as it turns out, a woman in our office has done some more research and finding in other communities, and I can't remember the specific one, but finding a community that did a similar ordinance with a duplex in I guess it was another state. And the actual number of applications that came forward for this were fairly minimal, just in terms of the turnout. Housing advocates, I'm sure, are for this. They're glad for it, but they probably would also tell you that this is a drop in the bucket in terms of, what really has to happen in terms of housing in our communities. And I think we can, whether we want to or not, we can decide to be proud of some of the larger housing developments, and particularly those that have some affordable components to them, that we are moving forward in our communities. But anyway, I think it is critical that we do develop as much as we can, an objective ordinance that could include some design components like we've started to talk about, looking at our design guidelines and identifying where we can put in some shalls instead of shoulds, and that sort of thing, and seeing if those can be applied and make those the objective standards. So anyway, just some comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Others? I think kind of piggybacking on that for me is maybe getting in more alignment with how we're going to deal with this new era, but also how it affects our existing people that are going to continue to come to us for single family homes. Does that change how we look at design review for a single family home now? And do we need to be more in line on both, rather than having somebody say, well, they can build a duplex and not talk to planning, but they can't build a house. And that the rules for the house are more onerous than the duplex. So I think we're going to have to do some work to try and reconcile that as well. It's a challenge, I think. So, Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, I was just going to try to craft a motion to move forward, Mr. Sheriff. That's okay.
Yep.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the City Council that we amend the Burlingame. Well, let me ask this. I'm sorry, Ruben and Kevin. Do you want two different motions? One for the amendments to the general plan and the other for the ordinances?
Yes, please. And start with the general plan amendment, since the general plan is the top order document. Okay. And just for the record, I know we haven't discussed the amendment for the general plan much in this meeting. It has been discussed previously, particularly in the joint meeting earlier this year. So it's not like the amendments just sort of come out of left field and never been considered. So the resolution reflects that.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to
Sorry,
recommend.
through the chair, I think we have the CEQA resolutions as well, so we need to divide those up.
Yeah, so there's actually 4 resolutions, just to make life more difficult. So in order, CEQA resolution for the general plan amendment, followed by general plan amendment, followed by CEQA resolution for zoning code, and then zoning code itself.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept and approve the CEQA action for the general plan amendment to increase the floor area ratio for office and research development projects on properties fronting Old Bay Shore Highway in the Bayfront area, and to provide additional specificity to sea level rise goals and policies.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any further discussion? Okay, let's put it to a vote.
All right. Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Tronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. Next one.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make an additional, another motion to recommend to the City Council the actual amendments to the general plan to increase the floor area ratio for office and research development projects on properties fronting Old Bay Shore Highway in the Bayfront area, and to provide additional specificity to sea level rise goals and policies. So that's the actual general plan amendments.
Great, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tronis and seconded by Vice Chair Loftus. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Tronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. Okay. We have our next CEQA.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend to the City Council that no further CEQA action is necessary for the ordinance updates amending Title 25, providing a comprehensive update of Title 25 of the Burlingame Municipal Code, adoption of the City of Burlingame zoning map, and repealing Title 21 historic preservation and Title 22 signs.
Thank you, sir. Are you going to stick with it?
I'll stick with it. I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any discussion? Great, let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Tronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. Okay, last one.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend an ordinance of the City Council amending Title 25, providing a comprehensive update of Title 25 zoning of the Burlingame Municipal Code, adoption of the City of Burlingame zoning map, and repealing Title 21 historic preservation and Title 22 sign.
Thank you, sir.
Again, I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tronis and a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Tronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt.
Aye. Motion carries 5002. And I believe that concludes item number 8 this evening.
Right.
And we're now moving on to item number 9, design review study, which brings us to 9A, 2112 Carmelita Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for design review and a special permit for building height for a new 2-story single-family dwelling with a detached garage at 2112 Carmelita Avenue. The applicant's proposing to demolish the existing 1-story single-family dwelling and detached garage and build a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage that would total 3,107 square feet, or 3,128 square feet is the maximum allowed. The proposed house would have 4 bedrooms, which would require 2 parking spaces, 1 covered space and 1 uncovered. And the covered space would be provided in the new detached garage. The applicant is requesting a special permit for height of 31 feet 5 inches, where a special permit is required for any height exceeding 30 feet and less than 36 feet. All other zoning requirements are met, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff at this time? I'm not seeing any hands. Nope. Okay, then let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project? Okay, if you unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi there.
Good evening, commissioners. Jean Davis, Davis Architecture. It's a pretty straightforward project. It's a craftsman design, single family, detached garage, following the existing neighborhood pattern of parking. I think the only thing we're asking for is the special height permit. And it's due to the kind of siding of the lot on the upslope and the sloping of the lot going away from the street. So it makes it so that to make the roof work, we need the extra 1.5 feet. And the homeowners are here too. They've spoken with all of the immediate neighbors and everyone is supportive from the conversations. But if you have more specific questions about the neighbors, they're here as well to answer those questions. And I'm here to answer any other questions as well about the design of the project.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Tronis.
Thank you. Hi, Gene. Good to see you. My only questions are just on the perimeter, on the fencing. You have the new 6-foot high fencing. So have you or the owners had a chance to coordinate and talk to the adjacent neighbors about fencing that's going to get replaced, come down, that sort of thing, and how you coordinate?
Yeah, I think the one side where we were, normally you'd carry the fencing between the houses and connect at the front corners. And because the neighbor on the uphill slope, they're really close to the property line there, and their house angles, it's not built parallel. It's like 30 inches at the front corner. We kind of suggested that we keep that open and that we could plant it if there were any screening concerns. We can't regrade that portion as well because we can't put a fence to then have our height continue. So we were just going to step up to it and then step down again in the back. And because putting a fence there wouldn't benefit them. And so that was kind of what we had proposed. And then that low wall, Public Works is making us cut it back 2 feet from the street, but if it kind of angles as well onto their property. So we were just going to clad our side of it with stone, but we're open to working with them, and Christina and Alexi are here. They can talk more about this specific conversation if you guys want to unmute.
Yeah, so with respect to the uphill neighbor, we have spoken to her. She, I think, is still kind of working on giving us any feedback with respect to that retaining wall. I think she's on board generally with the project and didn't express any concerns about the lack of fencing between the two houses.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. I'm glad you're in communication. Just at some point, obviously, fence is going to come down, a new fence, particularly in the rear yard area, a new one's going to be built, so you'll just want to coordinate. We hear stories of, dogs getting away and things like that. But if you're already in communication, that's my main question. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add that the neighbor on the downhill side, I think it came up when they spoke. They're actually planning on building a new fence, and the neighbor is. So I think that worked out too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the applicant? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and go to the audience and see if there's anybody who wishes to speak on this item. I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. Do we have any chats or emails that have come in regarding this project?
No, none were received.
Okay, well, not seeing any movement, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll move back to commissioners' comments. Well, I'll go first then. I like the project. I think it's well done. At first I was like, why can't you just fix it so that it doesn't go above the height? But when you look at the complexity of the forms and hitting the roofs and all of that to make it work well, I completely understand. And so I think it's right down the middle. It's not a huge obstacle. So I think that it seems supportable. And so I like it. I think it'll fit nicely into that area. And I agree with some close quarters there on each side with the neighbors. That coordination is much better done in advance than afterwards. Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I'll just echo what you said, Mr. Chair. This is a very nice project. It's very well crafted. It's very tidy and neat, and just it feels compact somehow in a very nice way. And I think that the architecture, achieving the architecture that's been achieved is well worth the special permit for height. I can't imagine not completing it the way it's completed. So really nice.
Okay, any others? Okay, are we ready for a motion? Commissioner Tronis? You're on mute.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'll make a motion to bring this back on the consent calendar when the plans are ready, or I don't think there's anything ready.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Tronis to bring this back on the consent calendar with a second by Vice Chair Loftus. Any further discussion? No, let's vote.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Aye.
I think you're muted.
Oh, I said aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. And Chair Schmidt.
Aye. I saw her lips move. So motion carries 5002. And congratulations. And we can move on to then item number 9B, 1129 Killarney Lane. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, would you please raise your hand so that we may be prepared to speak to you at the appropriate time? If possible, we ask you to also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for design review and special permit for an attached garage for a new 2-story single-family dwelling at 1129 Killarney Lane. The subject property contains an existing split-level single-family dwelling with an attached garage, totals 1,874 square feet. The level above the garage has about a 300 square foot unpermitted ADU. The applicant is proposing to demolish the entire second floor above the garage and then remove and reconstruct a significant portion of the first floor and then add a new second floor. The total floor area would be 2,681 square feet, where 2,700 square feet is the maximum allowed. Given the amount of demolition and reconstruction and the new second floor, staff has defined this as a new house for notification purposes. There will be a total of there's 3 existing bedrooms in the existing house. And with this application, it would increase to 4 bedrooms. 2 parking spaces are required, one which must be covered and will be provided in the reconstructed attached garage. Therefore, the project does comply with our parking requirements. The existing house is non-conforming with the right side setback at 2 feet, where 4 feet is the minimum side setback required. That will be brought into compliance with this project. And in addition, as part of the reconstruction of the garage, which is set back currently about 47 feet from the front property line, it will be brought forward with a 26-foot setback from the front property line, and a minimum front setback for an attached garage is 25 feet. So although the house currently does have an attached garage, given that this application includes building a new attached garage in a new location that's in front of the house, that is why staff did require a special permit for the attached garage. All other zoning requirements are met. I've provided for your reference this evening in your staff report, the design review criteria, as well as the findings required for the special permit for the attached garage. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions at this time? No? Okay, seeing none, then I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
No, I don't. James Chu, Chu Design Associates. Thank you, Catherine, for making just about everything I want to say. We demolished the existing attached garage with a junior ADU to accommodate a better home that really comply with all zoning requirements. We really think the proposed will improve the existing greatly. So we hope you like the project and like to answer any question you may have.
Great, thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. Hi, James.
Hi.
I was just wondering for the stairwell windows overlooking the neighbor to the right, since that I know you're meeting the setback requirement at 4 feet, but it's still very close to that neighbor to the right, and wondering if you might want to reduce the height of those windows, increase the sill height, I suppose, raise the sill higher.
Okay,
Privacy.
Again, I could definitely look into that, but if the window is facing a blank wall, do I still need to reduce the size? Because I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't see what it's facing. So if it's facing a blank wall, I suppose that would be a little different scenario. Though, would the light with the outward light in the evening affect any of the other windows nearby on the neighbor's house?
Yes, I understand. So I will again look into it and report back to at the next meeting to confirm there's no window or opening where the staircase window is facing.
Okay, thank you. And then just secondly, lastly, on the rear elevation, your the window sill heights, I think at the master as well as the master bath are set at the same height. The one that's clipping the gabled roof downstairs is, I believe, at the bathtub in the bathroom. I didn't know if you wanted to raise that a little higher even anyway for better privacy and avoid that clip.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, I think the project's very nice. I don't have any questions other than to ask that you make sure that the light fixtures comply with the lighting ordinances. They look like, especially the big fixture at the front porch, looks like it's probably a bulb that you're seeing, a naked bulb you're seeing. So if you'll take care of that, that'd be great.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any more questions from my fellow commissioners. I'll go ahead and open up the to the public. Looks like we have Robert Gilson with his hand up.
Yeah, Bob Gilson, he's part of the applicant, and I was having a hard time bringing him, but it looks like he's in now. Mr. Gilson, if you want to add any comments, otherwise we can go to the public.
Yeah, sorry. Trying to use this iPad here, and it's confusing. I have no comments. I just want to let you know I'm all here.
Perfect. Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands in the public. Do we have any chats or emails that came in?
No, we do not.
Okay. Then let's move it. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and let's move it back to the commission. Vice Chair Loftus.
This feels like another candidate for a consent calendar to me. This is a really nicely done project, and it fits particularly nicely with this mirrored pair next door to it. I think it'll be nice to see those two buildings not exactly identical, except for the mirror. So I heard very few questions, so I move that we bring this back on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Say. Any further comments? I did want to throw in one comment for me. I was taking a look at that side elevation with the stairwell window, and although it's looking at a blank wall today, that doesn't mean it's going to be looking at a blank wall tomorrow. And I would maybe encourage a window that would be more respectful of a house that has a window across the way, even if it doesn't at this point, because someday it will. So that would be my feedback, but not something that to me changes necessarily the outcome of the motion. So with that, we have a motion by Vice Chair Loftus and a second by Commissioner Say. Can we go to a vote?
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
and Chair Schmidt.
Aye. So motion carries 5002. Congratulations. And we're moving on to 9C, 1548 Westmore Road. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, will you please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time? If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Sure. This is an application for design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single family dwelling and new detached garage. The proposed project includes a first floor addition at the rear of the house and a new second floor addition. The existing attached garage and right side of the house would be demolished to make room for a new driveway that leads to a new detached garage at the right rear side of the lot. With the proposed project, the floor area would increase from 1,562 square feet to 3,071 square feet, where 3,085 square feet is the maximum allowed. This concludes my summary of the staff report. Before the applicant comes on here, do you have any questions for staff?
Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, then no. Then let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. And will the applicant come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Good evening, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Tony Ponteleone with Codis Ponteleone Architects. And we would just like to say that we feel that this craftsman image home will fit in nicely with the neighborhood. We detached the garage. The project sponsors, Sarah and Theo Wong, have 2 young boys and they need more room. And we think this second floor addition will be a nice addition to the neighborhood. And we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Not. Oh, Commissioner Tronis.
Yeah, thank you. So again, question on the site plan. So you're taking down the existing attached garage, building the new detached garage in the back. And so that new detached garage is going to be 4 inches off the right side property line. So question, have you had a chance to coordinate with the neighbor on that side? Is the fence going to go away in that back portion and then your garage just becomes the effective fence between the 2 properties? Is that the idea?
Yes, that was the idea. We haven't spoken directly to the neighbor.
Okay.
But that was our intent. Yes.
Okay. I mean, you're giving them an extra 4 inches, but you know, it's.
Yes, and that's mostly for the rain gutter, so the rain gutter doesn't overhang the neighbor's property.
That's so that side of the garage becomes their fence. So yeah, if you could talk to them and coordinate a little, because you know that's especially during the construction, that's going to have to be coordinated and make sure that fences come down at the right time and temporary provisions are made, that sort of thing.
We will do that.
Okay. My other question is in regards to the exteriors. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the existing or the first floor plate is going to be 9'6". Is that correct?
Hold on a second.
I see first floor, and I don't know if it's the existing plate or if it's a new top plate, but yep.
It's what happens is that the existing living room has a very nice, if you look at section on AA 4.0, the cross section number 2.
Okay.
If you look at down below, the living room has a really nice sort of cove ceiling.
Okay.
And we like to preserve that. Okay. So we ended up raising the height of the second floor a little higher in order to preserve that ceiling.
Okay.
Essentially, the addition starts really after the living room. And so that was the purpose there, to keep that ceiling intact.
Okay. So that sets your first floor plate at 9'6".
Yes.
And then your second floor plate is also 9'6". Is that correct?
No, well, at the low point, 9 foot.
Oh, it is
9 foot. Yes, 9 foot.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry. 10'6" to 19'6", so 9 feet. Okay. All right. That's better. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I'm looking at the front elevation. Can we go to the elevation sheet, Ruben? We go to the front elevation, and I look there, the right-hand side where you have the new entry, sort of stoop, and then trellis over it. It's that portion is looking a little bulky. And I think that there's a couple of things that are happening. One is just the mass is stacked up in that area with the 9'6" and then the 9 foot plate. And so it's getting a little tall. And maybe I'm just not seeing that trellis as enough of an element to break down that portion of the facade. But the other thing that I think is happening is you're calling for the 2x12 fascia. And in visiting the neighborhood, a lot of the houses are, 1940s and 50s production housing. very thin gutters and very, very small fascias. Even some of the newer houses that have been built, maximum maybe a 2x6 fascia that you might see here or there. And I think that big broad fascia is just really putting this house a little bit out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. I was wondering if you would just reconsider that detail on the fascia and maybe something with that front portion of that elevation to bring down the beefiness of that section.
The fascia, no problem at all. We can definitely reduce that down.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
The overall mass at the entry, that wall is 2 stories there.
Yeah.
I think the trellis, it does project out about 3 feet, 3.5 feet.
Oh,
So
okay.
it will create a nice shadow effect. If you look at sheets, look at sheet A3.2 is the side elevation from where the driveway is. And you could see the trellis, how far it projects out from above the entryway.
Right.
In the lower left there. So
okay.
In my dreams, we would love to have like a bougainvillea or a jasmine or something climb up there. And then that would be, I think with some landscaping, a vine climbing up there, that would be awesome. And I think that would help mitigate that difference also.
Okay. Well, I like, where I was going to go was, you've got the bench window seat in the master bedroom on the back side.
Yeah.
I think the way that that resolves itself with its roof is a little odd, where it's poking up, almost looks like a chimney. But aside from that, I was almost thinking that if there can be a similar bay, I realize it's in the master bathroom, but a bay over that, as an added element on that front facade could help, particularly if that window into the master bath is centered over that entry, foyer with the archway. It might be something to consider there on that front elevation, just to break down the scale of that.
We can explore that.
Okay.
I don't know if we have any extra square footage
Right.
to use, so
Right.
so we'd have to cut back somewhere else.
Right.
The other thing, I don't want it to be too close to the bedroom to the left of the master bathroom.
Okay.
I don't want it to encroach in there too much either. So that was another thought.
All right.
But we can look at it.
Well, if you could look at that and revisit it, it's just, I'm struggling with that element right there. And then like I said, the detailing on that fascia, I'm glad you're willing to revisit that. So thank you.
That's not a problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, then let's go ahead and open it up to the public and see if there's anybody with their hand raised. I'm not seeing very many attendees left. So let's move back. Do we have any communications, Ruben?
No, none received.
Okay, then let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Move it back to the commissioners and Vice Chair Loftus.
Yeah, thank you. So I like the idea of this house, and there's a lot to recommend it, but it feels uncomfortably large to me and very planar, meaning there's large planes in several areas, especially on the side elevations. The proposed east elevation, that square plane is enormous. And one of the things that I noticed in that is that the high floor plate on the ground floor and the high floor plate on the upper floor feel to me like they're stretching let's call it a spandrel between the lower floor heads and the upper floor sills. There's a lot of gap in there. I think the east side's better than the west side, which feels very mundane and extremely planar and a little bit wedding cakey to me. I think the building's just too big. I think that second floor plate height maybe should come down some. 9 seems too high to me, especially if if you get 9.6 on the ground floor. I would have thought, I mean, typically what we see is 9 and 8 more commonly, and that leads to a certain scale in the neighborhood architecture. And while I recognize that you may want to save that ceiling, I presume by save it you meant save it, just keep it in place and build on top of it. I wonder if you can't consider reconstructing it at a lower height. Everything just feels too big to me. It feels too tall, and it feels like there's too much planar surface. It's not that well articulated, despite its best efforts. And I say that's a little bit, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, because there is an effort made to articulate a lot of things. I just think that it's not working somehow. And so I think it needs some more work, and I think it needs to come down in scale, whatever that takes.
Okay. So I'll go next. I had the same struggle with a house that I did, in that I had a vaulted ceiling as well, and unfortunately it got sacrificed because it was very difficult to not end up with, really high floor plates. And I couldn't reconcile making the second floor multiple different levels and stairs all over the place. So it is definitely a challenge, and I can appreciate the desire to try and keep it. And I don't disagree with the scale issue here. And I think partially it's, with the gable kind of going side to side, it means you have a very tall peak. Whereas if the gable was going front to back, you could arguably take the low end forward and cut down on some of the massive 2-level scale off the front. So it's definitely challenging, especially in a neighborhood such as this one, where there are a lot of still smaller homes and smaller lots. So I agree with my fellow commissioners that there's some scale opportunities here. And I agree that the stretch in the middle has made it, makes a fairly large belly area that's hard to deal with. So those are my comments. Others? So do we have a motion that we could move this forward to action with some recommendations? Commissioner Tronis?
Yeah, I guess the options before us are bringing this back on action, or sending it to design review consulting. I think that there's enough of an effort here, as Commissioner Loftus was saying, enough of a start here that I don't think this needs to go to design review consulting. I would ask that some of the things be revisited, though, as Commissioner Loftus was pointing out, the plate heights, the mass and bulk, and again, as I was mentioning before, some of the detailing, like on the fascias and some of those, the broad piece of that front elevation. So I'm going to make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
Okay. I'll go ahead and second that. Is there further discussion? No? Okay, motion by Commissioner Tronis, seconded by myself. Let's vote.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt?
Aye. Motion carries 5002. And I think that concludes our design review study items for the evening. Moving on to item 10, do we have any commissioners' reports? Nobody raising their hand, so moving on to item 11, directors' reports.
Well, first wanted to, on behalf of staff, wanted to thank you for all your work on the zoning ordinance update, many study sessions, lots of 6 p.m. meetings, 5 in a row, I think it was, and 2 public hearings now here, and you've made a recommendation, so we thank you all. It's a big step. It's a lot of motion thinking from Commissioner Toronis tonight, but we don't do this often. It's once in a long time. So kudos to you all, and we will continue on now to City Council. And if anything comes out of that, we'll definitely keep you updated. But the goal is to have it adopted by the end of the year. So we have a study session with the council coming up on November 1st, and then introduction on November 15th, and then hopefully adoption on their first meeting in December. So we're super excited. The only other thing I had for you this evening was there was an FYI for 2721 Martinez. So let us know if that looks okay, or if you'd like to call it up for review. And I see Kevin as well here. I don't know if he wants to add anything after that.
No, I was just saying hello. Because yeah, we do appreciate a lot of work went into the zoning code update, and yeah, it's that shows, and hopefully it will make life a lot easier for design review and development review, and even just finding things in the code just the way it's organized. So appreciate all the input that you've given us over these months.
Yeah, and we may come back to you for some items. I mean, we're going to come back probably in a half a year to a year, come up with some cleanup or some additional work, especially with the objective standards for SB 9. So we're not going away just yet with the zoning. So, but the bulk of it is completed. So we're excited.
I'd like to say
thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to staff, and also say thank you to Denise Morrow, who I see is still out there in our audience. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope we didn't miss an important comment from you, Denise. Anyway.
Great.
Okay, well, then I think that allows me to adjourn at 10:43 p.m. Thank you all.
Good night, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Kevin, you got a second? Oh, he left. Okay, I'll catch up with him later.